G'day everyone, Matt Elder of Family Bricks here, and welcome along to the stream. Great to see everybody who's already here. Shout out to Atis's Life, Raptors of the Meat Thrower, Matthew Builds Bricks. Great to see you guys along here, and for this one as well, we're also going out on Twitch. So if anybody's out there in Twitch land, we'll also be there as well. And I'm very excited today. This is going to be something a bit of a trial version and something I haven't really done before, so we'll give it a try. Going to be interviewing the season 1 winner of the first Lego Masters UK, which then kicked off the other series, Australia, USA, I think there might be a Germany one. So this was the winner here, Nate Diaz. He was the first one with that. So it'd be great to get him along and just be able to go through and ask some questions and sort of get his sort of journey from, very quite young all the way through to what he's doing now and post Lego Masters, and seeing how that all goes and works, so people get a bit of an understanding of that. I've done other interviews on my channel, particularly YouTube, and get to go in depth with guests and things. So this one's a bit different in terms of being live. So what we can also do too is, if you've got any questions about anything which pops up, or I know there's probably going to be some Lego Masters questions, put them in the chat. I'll try to keep track of them at the same time, juggling the interview as well. We'll try to answer things as they come up. So if there's Lego Master questions which come up, then they'll probably get answered at the end of the Lego Master session. So don't freak out, or just keep banging away initially at some initial questions. So I think we'll get there. Just quickly also see that the Bricketeer has come in. Hey, how you going? Bagel Lover as well. Good to see you in. Thanks for coming on. CB Bricks. Good to have you in as well. Great that everybody's here. And I think without further ado, we might just cover off just a couple of little basics and things like that. This is a family-oriented sort of stream and things like that. So try to keep the chat quite nice and light and things like that. And yeah, we'll just sort of go on from there. And just having a bit of a look through here. So I think, yeah, we'll just, as I've already mentioned, going to be having Nate Diaz come along, and he's the first Lego Master UK winner, and I'll bring him in here, and away we go. Hello, Nate.
Good
How you
evening,
going?
I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. It's don't know about you, but it's a slight bit cooler than what it was yesterday.
It's a little bit cooler, but it's still quite warm up here.
The things you get to talk about in the UK, it's sort of like the 3 weeks of summer that we get, and it's here now.
It's here now. This is it. Right. Last night we had lots of thunderstorms up here. I don't know if you were down there, but it was entertaining.
No, we just sort of had a nice light breeze which sort of came through and things like that. So just for people out there, whereabouts are you based at the moment?
So I'm up in North Nottinghamshire, the area. Internationally, we're famous for Robin Hood, but other than that, we're not really known for much.
Well, Robin Hood, there's a good one to start off with and put it on the map. So I'm sure people outside of the UK, all over the world, they've generally heard of Robin Hood, whether it's through film or anything like that. So the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Exactly. Like, to be fair, most people think that Robin Hood's a fox, which doesn't help.
Cool. All right then. I think as we sort of mentioned at the beginning, we'll go through, and I sort of see this as kind of like 4 major segments. We'll talk about the initial contact with Lego, then we'll go into sort of the transition to AFOL, then of course the Lego Masters stuff, and then things after that. So I think if people in the chat there, if you got questions, sort of thinking in terms of, I think at the edge of one of those sort of breaks, we'll really sort of dive into a few questions out of the chat and things like that as well. So I guess the first thing to start off with then is, what's your sort of earliest memories of coming into Lego and contact and anything in there?
So I've got a couple of early memories. The first one is the first set that my granddad bought for me, which was a fishing boat, which was lovely. I managed to pick one up on eBay a couple of years ago just to sort of replace that. It was really nice. Just had a couple of minifigures, had the nice lead weight in the back so that you could float it in the bath and it'd be balanced, and came with a little shark, and the shark was very cool for me, aged probably about 4 or 5. And then the second one was when I was a little bit older and went on a holiday to the seaside. used my holiday money in the little toy shop there to just buy one of the very small sets that was a pirate on a desert island with a skeleton and some treasure, which for me had everything I wanted in a Lego set. It had got a goodie, a baddie, even though he was dead, and a bit of treasure to fight over. And I thought it was great. There was a build, there was a couple of minifigures, and it was lovely. Probably only cost me a couple of quid, but that would be quite a lot of my holiday spending money at the time. So I always remember that because it was the first set I ever treated myself to.
Oh, cool, cool. Was that the sort of thing you just got money from doing chores or something, or was it like an allowance or something? Or do you remember?
Well, that was because we were on a holiday. I probably got a couple of pounds off of my grandparents to say, have a nice time when you're on holiday, treat yourself to a few ice creams or something. But usually, yeah, the money would come in from doing jobs around the house, and a bit older, getting a paper round and getting jobs and things. But earlier on, probably just grandparents being nice and giving me some money for the holidays.
Oh, excellent. And did they sort of factor in or have some influence later on, or was that sort of one specific time that you can remember them and Lego?
That was probably the main time I can remember them and Lego. Granddad's not around anymore, but my grandmother, my nan, to be fair, Nottinghamshire's no word, will always save me anything in the paper to do with Lego and that sort of thing. She always lets me know if she's seen Lego in the news, and she still keeps that little flame going.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. Excellent. So once you had that set and you played with that for a little bit, do you remember getting more sets, or did you just really have that one? And
I had a few, not that many, but I usually remember we had the sort of classic red bucket with the 4 studs on the lid, and just going to town, building whatever we wanted. Me and my brother had the same box each, and we'd pile it together, make houses, make zoos, make whatever we felt like. If we'd seen a film, we'd probably try and make something out of that film. I remember trying to make a Jurassic Park with my brother, being quite young. I don't think there were any Lego dinosaurs at that time, but we tried to make them and make cars to go around the dinosaurs, and just, yeah, have a good time using our imagination and whatever bricks we had in front of us.
yeah, it's the sort of thing where at that stage, I think you're young enough and you're just doing anything, but you're not labeling it as a mock per se.
No, you're just playing with your Lego bricks.
Yeah, exactly. So do you remember at what stage then you sort of, I guess as a child, you started to drift away from Lego, or were you always with it?
So I think it was when I probably went up to secondary school, my parents convinced me that I was too old for Lego at that point. I think more realistically looking back, like my parents had divorced, so there probably wasn't enough money to buy both me and my little brother Lego sets, because let's face it, it's not a cheap toy. It's worth its money, don't get me wrong, but it's not a cheap toy. So I think if they only have to buy one of the brothers some Lego sets, then it's a bit easier that way, isn't it? So yeah, going up to secondary school, I was convinced that I was definitely too old for Lego at that point.
Yeah. And was it the sort of thing at that point they sort of got tucked away, or they got sold altogether, or do you recall?
Well, my Lego collection got given to my little brother, and then later on, I think it got given away to cousins or family friends or something. So I don't actually have any of my childhood Lego left.
Yeah, so
But
sort
that's
of
what happens with a lot of Lego collections, isn't it? You don't actually expect that, oh, we'll keep that just in case I become an adult who enjoys Lego bricks.
Yeah, it's sort of like, okay, in 30 years' time when I have kids myself, then yeah, I'll hold on to it just in case. Yeah,
it's a long time to keep hold of
it. Yeah, it does get to that sort of point. So I guess from then, when did you, I guess, rediscover Lego, or, you had your dark age? Do you remember when you sort of started to come out of it?
So yeah, I remember it was one very specific moment. It was while I was at university. I had to have a meeting with the head of my course that I was on. So I went to his office, had the meeting. It went surprisingly well. I thought it was going to go badly, which is always nice. But as I stepped up to get out of his office, I turned around to get to the door and realized he'd got a wall that was filled with shelves, and all the shelves were filled with Lego models. And suddenly something just clicked in my head that said, this guy's a proper adult. He's in charge of a course at university, and he's allowed to like Lego. So if he's a proper grown-up and he's allowed to like Lego, surely that means I'm allowed to like Lego. And on my way home back to the student digs that night, I actually called via Argos and bought myself a set that night. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a police van. But just from that moment on, as I say, the rest is history.
Yeah. It was enough to rekindle.
Exactly. It was brilliant. I loved it.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And from that, because that university professor, you went into university, and I believe you're a science teacher now.
I am indeed a science teacher.
So at university, what were you studying, or what was?
So I was studying forensic science, specialising in the human skeletal remains, which I don't get to do very often nowadays, I must say. Not a lot of Lego involved, and it doesn't come up very often in the GCSE curriculum.
No, I couldn't imagine it would. So, how did that particular professor and things like that? Was it just a penny drop moment, or did later on you have more engagement with him, just going, what's this, or you like that, or any further subsequent?
It was really just a penny drop moment. I mean, we had such a large course that to get any personal time with it and him, it was usually spent on asking you advice for an assignment or any tips on the course, etc., rather than thinking, I can try and get in with him here on the Lego liking. Yeah, that didn't really come up, I'm afraid. It was more just the light switch moment of, yep, definitely allowed to like Lego.
I'm allowed to do it. There is my role model.
There he is. Great guy. And so even more great for bringing that in.
And I mean, you remember it to this day, so it obviously, exactly. Sort of came up and made that effective impression, I guess. So from there, so you've gone off to Argos and you started to buy another generic set. How did you sort of transition from then to, the next couple of years? Was it sort of just a little bit here and there, or did you really start going, hey, wait a minute? Or is it a matter of, I'm a poor student?
It was kind of, I'm a poor student, so trying to see whether I can buy a set or eat that week was a bit of a payoff. So, like, for example, Cafe Corner came out just after I came out of my dark age, but to be able to afford £80, that was like I could eat for a month, or I could own a really big, really cool Lego set. So food paid off. Food won that argument.
It wasn't sort of like, okay, well, if rather than having a steak, if I just have the pot noodles or something.
Yeah. Well, it was more, if rather than having the pot noodles, I have the supermarket own brand noodles.
Yeah, so it really was that. So I guess from there you were just sporadically getting bits and pieces.
That was it. I came out of uni, got a job. The job wasn't amazing pay, so once again I was just getting Lego sets around Christmas, birthday, and maybe once a month treat myself to a middle-sized set.
Okay. And how long do you think that sort of went before you were able to, I guess, was it within that time that you were just really making the most of pieces and developing an understanding of, how things go together, or were you just more casually throwing some things together? Or
at that point, it was very casual. Like the main point that I actually started thinking, I can do this, I'm feeling brave and I'll get doing it, was probably around 2015, which in the grand scheme of things really isn't that long ago. I'd messed around, I'd made my own things, but I hadn't thought about reaching out and finding people and discussing it. I hadn't even taken photos of things I'd made. I'd been to a couple of shows to visit, and then I applied for Brick 2015 at Birmingham and realised that when they accepted me, I actually had to build something quite large scale. And sort of from putting the application in and saying, look, this is what I'm working on, I then had, I think, 3 weeks to get something of show standard for Brick Live ready. So it was the pressure that I needed, really. And from that point, it was just a really steep learning curve of, right, I've experimented enough, I've built enough sets to get enough techniques together to build something. Let's actually put this together and do it. And it worked really well for me.
Yeah. So with that, do you recall, there's nothing like a deadline to focus the mind. Do you recall what that sort of build was, or what it was you tried to achieve with that?
Yeah, so it was, I stuck with something that I knew. I went for a scout camp and just made quite a large, probably 1 meter by half a meter, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that large nowadays. But to me at the time, that was huge to build something that size. But it was sort of an adventure center with loads of minifigures on climbing walls and assault courses and kayaking down rivers, going on hikes across waterfalls and things. And it was just trying to get a bit of everything in there, and also make it, because let's face it, most adults have been in the Cubs or the Scouts or Guides or Brownies at some point in their life. So getting them to think, oh yeah, I remember doing that as a kid, getting children to spot things that the adults hadn't, and just trying to make it as interesting for people to look at as possible. And I think that worked quite well. I think as an AFOL, you can either choose, and it is a gamble, you can either choose to make something that you really enjoy, or you can make something that you think crowds at shows are going to really enjoy. If you're somebody who goes to Lego shows, of course, there's then AFOLs who just put their stuff online, so it's looking for what your followers really enjoy. And it paid off for me to try and make something that I think people, children and parents going to a Lego show would like, and I think that worked.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned there, if you're hitting that where the adults have gone through a Scubs or a Couts, or mixing words together, the joys of live. If adults have gone through Cubs or Scouts or something like that, there's going to be a common touch point there, so it's going to be really easy to link back. And then also too, if you've then got children at that age who are doing Cubs and Scouts as well, then they can relate to that. So just with that though, so was that sort of the first show that you sort of did a larger scale mock and sort of things? And how did you sort of come to just sort of go, okay, yes, I'm going to do this? Or had you sort of been talking to other people doing shows beforehand, or how did that?
So everything sort of happened at once. So I applied for I'd been to 2 shows, I want to say. I'd visited the Yorkshire Brick Show and I'd visited Bricktastic. From there, I got to find out about lugs that weren't just brickish. I'd tried to research online about lugs, and the only one I found was brickish, and I won't go into it, but on reading their website, it didn't interest me at all. But meeting AFOLs at these shows, it did get my interest to join Brickshire. And then I applied for Brick Live, and then after I got accepted and finished my mock, then went to my first Brickshire meeting after I'd done that, which is backwards really, because I could have got some advice from them, but of course I'd already finished it by that point. Going expecting to find out that loads of them would be at the same show, so I'd be able to make some friends at the meeting and then meet up with them in Birmingham, to find out that I was the only person that was going to be there from that group. So that didn't work out very well for me. But that first show, well, it was the start of a lot of things for me. So I've got a lot to thank Warren and Kitty Ellsmore for putting on the show, because it was the first large-scale mock that I'd ever done. It was the first mock that I'd bothered to do things like take photographs of or share at a show. It was where I met Jim Walsh and Robert Clarkson from Northern Brickworks, enjoyed Northern Brickworks, which is my sort of main lug at the minute. And it's also where I met Steve Guinness as well, who went on to become one of my best friends and also my partner for Lego Masters as well. So I owe a heck of a lot to Brick Live Birmingham 2015.
Yeah, it was such a critical point in what you were doing with that. And do you recall, I would imagine being the first show, it would have been a little bit apprehensive. Do you remember any sort of thing from the weekend or any clear memories from that?
I remember it being a very long time. It was a full day to set up, and then it was 4 days of show. So we were living in a Holiday Inn and walking to the NEC, and it was just very strange, because even though you're in such a big place, you're sort of contained. But because of that, we made some really good friends and got to find out loads about the AFOL community and how much more opportunities there were out there for adults and Lego. And it was just, on the whole, brilliant, but at the same time absolutely exhausting. It was in October half term, so out of the 9 days that I'd got off of work for October half term, I'd given up 5 of them to go and spend with other people's kids at a Lego show instead of teaching other people's kids at school.
So, and with that, you're mentioning that you sort of, you had the 3 weeks to do it. Was it a matter of that you already had the pieces, or how did you go about actually assembling them off together? Did you find Bricklink, or what was the?
I looked at Bricklink and it scared me, so I didn't touch it with a barge pole at that point. I remember getting on the train and going to Sheffield to Meadowhall to get to the Lego store and fill in Pab cups, because that was the main way I knew to get Lego. I started the lake for the scout camp in Medium Azure 2x4 plates and found that by the time I'd got through the cup, I'd only done half my lake. So then got on the train and went back to Meadowhall to get some more, to find there were none left. So that was an hour each way on a train to find that, yeah, there aren't any here. So I had to then change the colour of the lake to whatever I could find. I think I went on eBay and bought bulk lots of plate and brick, and just because, as I say, I was scared of my Bricklink. I had no idea at that point where people got their Lego collections from, other than ripping apart the sets that you already owned.
Yeah, it's sort of like, oh, you just happen to get 12 of those sets or something at the time.
Yeah. But it wasn't. I was just being a very, so I was at that point, I wasn't really an AFOL. I was just an adult who happened to own quite a few Lego sets. So it was, right, what can I actually use this for? And when you're turning city vehicles into landscape and trees, they don't translate that well. So you find, actually, I really do need to buy some more pieces.
Yeah. So going on, you obviously had that show, and I know in 2016, I think it was, that was the first build that you did with Steve. Is that correct?
So 2016, I think it must have been, yeah. So Bricktastic 2016, me and Steve worked together on a large scale school. So we'd built separate classrooms each, and Steve had built the roof and done some grounds, and we managed to make it. It was, well, without blowing our trumpets, it was fantastic. We'd got it interactive so that you could press buttons and different classrooms would light up. We'd done a quiz so that kids could come along and answer the questions on it. Instead of just to spot the minifigure and run away, there was a question about every room in the school, such as how many mugs are there in the staff room and things like that. So kids were having a great time around our MOC, which once again we made for the visitors to the show instead of making for ourselves. And again, we made something that we knew because we were both teachers at the time. So it worked really well for us. But yeah, that was the first experience of building something with Steve that I can remember. I hope that's right. And that worked really well for us because we showed that actually you don't need to live in the same town to do that. Steve's probably 2.5 hours away from me to drive. But we managed to, through planning and through meticulous design, make a MOC that fitted together perfectly and made this beautiful completed school.
Yeah. So do you remember then, I guess, because you mentioned at the 2015 show that you met him, and then if we're getting to 2016, you're doing that MOC together. Do you remember how you sort of got together and say, hey, let's do something together, or how you guys sort of really became friends with it? Or
so the friendship part was just, we started, as I say, at Brick 2015, and then while we were at Brick 2015, we both joined Northern Brickworks. We then met up again at the Northern Brickworks AGM that year. And also then my wife, Zoe, she's got some family who live probably half an hour away from Steve. So when we're visiting them, we called in on Steve. We message most days via Facebook Messenger and things like that. So the friendship grew and grew until we were like, well, we both like Lego. Why don't we try and do something together? And that's when the school came around. And it was just projects like that, really. We both, even now, will send pictures of builds that we're not sure about or we're quite proud of, just to get some feedback off each other and show off sometimes as well.
Yeah, great. Was it just sort of as you're sort of saying there, you just sort of had this natural sort of energy or connection there, and then it just became apparent, hey, let's do something? Or was it sort of you knew the show was coming up and you wanted to do something together? Or how did you sort of decide on doing the school aspect?
I think it was kind of all of that. We knew that we were AFOLs, we knew that we were teachers, we knew we wanted to do something together. And rather than go sort of really left of field and choose something random, we just decided to do something that we would stick together with. And then we knew that we live either side of the Pennines, so we knew that we needed a show that we would both be at, and Bricktastic was the perfect opportunity for that, really. So all of those things coming together made sure that we would make our first MOC together.
Yeah, and you mentioned there a lot of, to be able to do a MOC together from distance took a lot of planning. Was there any particular things that, particularly if other people are looking at doing collaborative MOCs, that you sort of say, look, make sure you hit these things, or these are really good things to consider?
Basically, try and make a template. So because we were making a school, we just came up with 2 room sizes. So we had a larger room to be classrooms, etc., and a smaller room that could be first aid or staff room or a technician's office. And we knew that if we stuck to those exact dimensions, it would work. When we see collaborative things like collaborative modular cities or Micropolis, because there's a standard there or a set template, it suddenly becomes a lot easier for everybody to maintain that and for everything to come and fit together really well. So come up with a standard or come up with a template and you're laughing.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, in terms of having that, so you can build separately,
Yeah.
but then when you come together, I think that usually
that it should go together quite well.
Yeah, you know that it goes together.
Come on. I think the upstairs windows and the downstairs windows were out by 1 stud, but the walls worked. So it looked all right because from the front of the school, it was still symmetrical. It's just the windows weren't quite in line.
As such, yeah, they sort of slightly shifted, which, forgot to carry the one. And do you find within you're part of the Northern Brickworks, and that within AFOLs that you meet or deal with, that they have a tendency, by and large, I mean, there's always exception, but to be of a STEM or science orientated sort of background, or something which has logical sequences? Or?
Not always. There's quite a lot of very creative people out there as well. I think with Lego as a system, it works for the STEM side of things because it's perfect for your engineering. It's perfect because the numbers make sense, the geometry makes sense, but also it's this truly creative medium that even with just a handful of bricks, you can make something and feel really proud of it. So I think that it does sort of attract all walks of life, but at the same time, it also goes for the nerdy people who might be into science or maths because we like indoor hobbies.
Indoor hobbies generally by ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's indoors, it's by yourself. You can put your music on and just get on with a pile of bricks. It's great.
Away you go with it, sort of thing. So just as you mentioned that there with some sort of music and things like that, is that what do you find is conducive for you to be able to build and create things, and like, you know, in terms of your environment?
At home, I almost anything. So I might sometimes have the TV on in the background, or I'll just put a podcast on, or I'll just have some music playing quietly in the background. It's just anything that helps me relax and then get on with it. Whereas I know you get onto it in a bit, but Lego Masters, it's very, very different because, of course, there's no music, there's no TV in the background, there's no distractions. But honestly, I work best under pressure. So if I'm working to a deadline, that makes me work really well. And at that point, I'll probably turn all music off and just concentrate straight on the bricks.
What you're doing, yeah. It's I found that with an old animation teacher. They're sort of like, they got asked one time what music they listened to about it, and when they were doing animation, they completely went off. It's like, animation was all about concentration. Why would I be listening to anything else? So it's like that, it sticks with you. So what do you think has helped develop your particular creativity and understanding of Lego bricks? And that, is it just a matter of sitting there and playing with the blocks, or looking at what other people are doing, or?
It's a bit of everything. So it's experimenting yourself. It's looking out there at friends and AFOLs online, at how creative they are and what they do. And also a lot of the builds that I do are just brick and plate sort of things. And it's just understanding the geometry. So sort of the 5:2 relationship and the 3:1. And if you've got the ratios and you've got the maths there, you can experiment away, and everything it clicks, for want of a better word. Click works with bricks. So I do find that as long as you are sticking to the rules, you can make almost any shape. You can make almost anything happen, can't you?
Yeah, I've certainly seen some people and some of the stuff they come up with like big geometrical spheres and things using like three pieces, because as you've said, they've gotten through and worked out, you know, this angle and that ratio and everything.
Well, this is it. And once you've sort of got an understanding of that, the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you like and build in any direction. And I think the designers at Lego are starting to get on this more. If you look at the T-Rex Rampage set, like the dinosaur in that is beautiful, and it's built in every single direction because we've got that many snot pieces now and that many different plates and wedges and curved slopes and everything else. We can just make these beautiful things because the system works.
Yeah, it's I know it's jumping around a bit, but we picked up a couple of the new Mario sets which came out today, and part of it, when you're just sitting down and breaking it down, is there's so many new elements. It's
So
like,
so many. New Elementary did it, have done it, and there's so many recolors and new elements for it that, well, some of them are immensely useful. The little 5-plate high, 2 wide, 1 wide, sort of, I can't think how to describe this, like the brickhead brick, but with extra 2 sides of studs on it.
Yeah.
That's incredibly useful. And in some ways, some AFOLs are going to think, wow, that's brilliant, we can use it for so much stuff. But other AFOLs are going to think, well, that takes the fun out of it. I had to work out ways to make that happen with normal bricks before. So it's getting that balance right. I think embrace it. If Lego have come up with it, it's fantastic, and we can have so many uses for it.
So many uses for it. Yeah, it seems like now, when I came out of my dark age, which was a long period of time, prior to that, there wasn't even a snot brick. I mean, the closest you got was the old school
early headlamp brick.
Yeah, and so just wrapping your head around that sometimes is a bit of a challenge. So, I mean, you've obviously seen the new elementary stuff in terms of, and it might be jumping around a little bit, but what do you think of the electronics in those sorts of Lego itself, and then the Mario type ones?
I think it's a clever move by Lego because, let's face it, kids nowadays want interactive things with lights and sounds, and they want some level of coding there. And I think it's a clever thing to do. We've seen it with Hidden Side last year by having the app integration, and by having Mario this year as well. Lego are clever. They're not stupid. They know that to keep themselves relevant and to keep kids wanting it, they need that extra level of interactivity. So I don't blame them all for doing it. It might not appeal to AFOLs, but in the nicest possible way, we are not their singular target market. The vast majority of their market is children and adults who buy for children. And to them, it's absolutely perfect. And I know one of my mates who's an AFOL today, he's bought the 200 and whatever pounds Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
But Lego are clever enough that if you buy the starter set for Mario, you can put him on the top and it'll do the Mario theme tune as you play the game. So he's bought that as well at an extra 50 quid. So well done, Lego. Even though you thought these starter sets are only going to be sold to the kids who want to play the Mario game, no, you've been clever enough to go, the people who really want the Nintendo Entertainment System will also buy this 50 quid set on top, just so it makes a noise as you wind the handle. And they've been incredibly clever again, because people who are our age, that are adults, who don't like Lego but might be into their retro gaming, they're going to go out and they're going to buy this Lego set. Hopefully they enjoy the experience of building that Lego set, and they're going to buy lots more Lego sets in the future as well. Lego are exceedingly clever with this stuff.
Yeah, it's something I speak to a lot with Kevin Hinkle about, because obviously he used to be within Lego, and it's for him, it's always that sort of thing of, how can we get new shelf space in a different place? And with this one, it's going to go into your game shops, it's going to go into all those sorts of things. And very much like what you were saying with the TV, because I was looking at the TV and things like that and going, hey, that's really cool and things like that. And then I saw that you put the Mario on top of it, and it's like, this is a gateway drug, because once you get one of them,
really is.
I want that.
The thing is, as well, for less than half the price, you could buy the actual the actual Nintendo Entertainment System and the Mario game and play it for real on your actual TV. But people won't do that, but they will spend over £200 to have a Lego version of it, which is crazy that Lego can make people do that. It's brilliant.
It's fantastic marketing in that, because much the same, I'd seen a meme like that, is you can get the old, the NES Classic, it comes with 30 games on it, much like what you said, for less than $100. But no, you can convince people to, it's brilliant. But
spend 7 times that amount on something that, when I first saw the pictures of it, I thought that you got to play as Mario, but then when you look closer, you just wind the handle and Mario will automatically jump over the obstacles. So it's not even a game. You're literally just doing an animation when you wind the handle, but people want it. And
yeah.
It's incredible that they do that.
No, it's brilliant. And it's the sort of thing, like, you know, Lego did their marketing really well, because I saw today, I was on the fence about it. And then it's sort of like, okay, if you do it today, it's a gift with purchase with this extra set. And it's like, yep, okay, done. Like, so yeah, we got it and brought it home. And the kids who, I mean, they've seen the NES Classic and they kind of know a little bit about Mario, but they just loved it. Like, it was just, they were having so much fun with it. And the thing for them is, I had a go and, you know, got a high score or whatever. And then what all they were interested in doing was then beating that.
Of course.
And it was good, because it was interesting to sort of see them, because they're a bit older than your little one. But just that way that they're starting to iterate and go through it and go, how can I do this faster to get more coins? And how can I, like, it was just, and they had a ball with it. Like, it's brilliant. So.
Well, this is it, because they have the fun building it and then they get to have the fun playing it as well. That's what we as AFOLs usually miss out on, because we enjoy building it, but then the majority of sets that we build will then sit on a shelf and gather dust. With kids, you've got that extra level, and the Mario interactivity with that ensures they're going to have even more fun with it and keep going for it. And as more sets come out, they're going to want to buy them so that they can come with it. Like, there's the little expansion packs where you get the new hats for Mario and the new trousers to make him go on different modes. Genius idea by Lego. Absolutely genius.
Yeah, and it was also too, when we walked into the store today, it's sort of like, you know, it was kind of dad getting it for them, but then it's sort of like they wanted something, so it's sort of like, okay, well, you can get a couple of little blind bags, because they were like, you know, £4 or whatever it was, and again, by the time they integrated that into it, it's like, yep, good on you, they figured it out. So
well done. Well, if you get 10 of those blind bags, that's another 35-40 quid you've spent, isn't it? And that's if you actually get all 10 individuals without getting any duplicates.
Which, particularly now, you can't even begin to handle the bags.
Exactly. You're going to get duplicates.
You're going to. So, no, it was good with that. Because with your little one, are they at the stage where they can even deal with Duplo, or is it still a ways off yet?
He's just building sort of towers with Duplo at the minute. So we're not very far. He's not 2 yet. So I'm impressed with what he can do, but he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I would imagine between probably once he's 3 and going the opposite side of that, then
oh, he'll be on it. He's got more Duplo than most children will ever have in their lives, because I am now apparently a Duplo AFOL as well, or AFOD, I guess.
AFOL, whatever it is. But I've also found too, if you are building big sculptures and things like that, Duplo are great if you're not doing it with tech.
Brilliant filler.
Brilliant filler to get the height and size that you need and have the structure. Yeah, so
definitely. Especially if you're building things like mountains or volcanoes, absolutely perfect for that.
With that thing there, yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, so I think is there anything else we should that you want to just touch upon before we sort of get into the Lego Masters aspect? Anything previous to that which sort of informed you in terms of Lego, or just your approach to it? Or?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, I must say. I think we've covered most things.
Okay, then, sure. We'll just have a quick little look through the chat and just sort of see if there's any questions which have popped through there. There was one really, really early, which I did give you a heads up about. Where was it here? Right at the beginning. Do you like kPop?
I've not really listened to much kPop other than Gangnam Style a few years ago. That's about it. I'm very sorry.
That's it.
I own the Ninjago CMF kPop fangirl, if that counts for anything.
No, that's certainly getting through it there. So I think we just got people saying hello more than anything. Nice to meet you. Good to see everybody in. And a few people there. So I'm sorry, just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, and I think, going back to a little bit of what we were sort of saying, they don't know how to make money. Yep. And have people smiling while doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I saw some pictures of the various stores. Like obviously today, I mean, even people dubbed it like Super Saturday because there's just so much stuff being released. I think particularly I saw an article of something crazy like 130 new sets today.
Wow, that is a lot of new sets.
Across pretty
And
much
some
every.
incredible ones as well today, aren't there? The whole Mario range, the piano, the Super Nintendo system, sorry, the Nintendo system, not Super. Like, so many incredible sets coming out today. Like, I've seen photos on Facebook of the queues outside Lego stores this morning.
Yes, it's just, and even I think somebody I know went to one of the local Lego stores here, and they were like almost the first in line, and they more or less got the last 501st Battle Pack set, and that's pretty much sold out online and everything like that. So I know Star Wars is grey is kind of not your color. But even some of the other things, like I think I'd gone in there after about an hour, and they're sort of like even then sort of saying it's like if you want that other Star Wars one over there, I think it was like the final duel from episode 6 or something or whatever. It's sort of like that's the last one, so you might want to grab it, sort of thing. It's like yeah, no, it's. I think sometimes my wife watches these just to sort of so I can walk myself into how much you're spending on Lego. So, and we've got a question here from Stud Cities. Do you prefer to make sculpture builds or scenes with minifigs?
The majority of the time, I prefer to make sculpture builds, if I'm honest. I just like trying to make new organic shapes with Lego and making things out of nature. But I do also enjoy making minifig scenes as well. But on the whole, it's more sculpture-y stuff.
Yep. There was, I'll just throw it in here because it seems to be a good segue. It was a question that we got, I think last week. It was, I'm just got to see where, make sure I don't mess it up. But it was basically, do you know roughly with your Lego Masters final sculpture piece, roughly a brick count on how many pieces may have been in that?
Oh, we did. I think we estimated it to be about 300,000 or something crazy like that.
Wow. And
a lot of bricks.
A lot of bricks. And I guess the other question, which was also asked, is was that solid or was that hollow?
So the desk was mainly hollow, but the man sitting down was quite thick, so he was done with 2 wide bricks. He did have hollow bits inside him, but his head was completely solid.
Yep. Okay. All right. So hit those ones there. So I don't think I've seen any questions, and we've done those ones there. So I guess then maybe actually it'll segue into it anyhow. Getting into the Lego Master stuff, because I'm sure that's where a lot of people know you. And how did that? We touched on a little bit in terms of you and Steve doing the build in 2016. How did you get from that to Lego Masters?
It was not in a normal way, I don't think. So me and Steve had seen that Tuesday's Child, the production company who made the program, had posted in quite a few Facebook groups looking for AFOLs and looking for people to go along. And me and Steve sort of just joked about it, saying, oh, that'd be funny, wouldn't it, if we actually got onto that? And then it was my wife, Zoe, who said, stop joking about it and just apply. What's the worst that could happen? So we filled out our application forms online and sent them in. And that started the ball rolling from just joking about it to just getting a bit of a kick from my wife and going, yeah, give it a go. Why not?
Give it a go. What's the
worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is we get an email back saying, sorry, but no.
Yeah. So you filled in the application, and then what was the process from there in terms of interviews and psych tests?
I can never remember the order of it, but I think it went from so online application to then a phone call to a Skype interview to a audition down in London, then another telephone interview after audition 1, then back down the following week for audition 2, more bits on Skype, then go down to London to have a meeting with a psychiatrist. And then we should have found out at that meeting that we were in, but we ran out of time and me and Steve were going to miss our trains. So we had to leave. And then we got told only a few days before, in fact, no, a few weeks before the filming would start, that we would in fact be on the show, which was quite nice news. But as I say, we should have found out a few weeks before that, which would have settled us more, because we were just sort of in limbo thinking, well, we've done all this stuff and we still don't know if we're in or not.
We've jumped through all the hoops and
We've done every bit of hoop jumping we can. We still know nothing.
Yeah, it's sometimes just that limbo of, it'd be nice to know a definitive way, yes or no. Just let us
Exactly.
go. So then from that, you get the phone call to say, yes, you're in. And then how did that sort of, because you sort of hinted at it there, in terms of the filming schedule, and because obviously kids were involved, so how did that all play out?
Well, that worked really well for me, Steve, because we were both teachers at the time, and because there were children involved, it meant that all filming happened at weekends and school holidays, so absolutely perfect for a couple of teachers. But it did mean that so I think we applied in January, and then the auditions were February, and I think filming started in April. I was actually on my second honeymoon with my wife in Iceland when filming was due to start. They shifted. So I know this sounds weird. It just reminded me, but we had to give, even though we hadn't been told that we were in or not at that point, we had to tell them what dates we couldn't do, etc. Then strangely, they switched the filming dates around so that it matched my holiday, but we still hadn't been told we were in. So I was trying not to read too much into it, the fact that they've moved all the filming dates of the TV show to coincide with when I got back from holiday. But I made a stupid mistake in that with time zones and flying, etc., I thought that I was going to be at home at midnight Sunday, ready for Monday morning. Turned out it was actually noon on Monday that I'd be home. So I got in touch with the TV company from Iceland, who were like, yeah, we can't delay it anymore. So they actually paid for a flight for me from Iceland to get me home a day early. But that meant that I left my wife in Iceland on her own for a day. So she wasn't best pleased at that point, but she did get to do some of the stuff she wanted to do that I wasn't very interested in.
Yeah. It's like, you're going where to do what now?
Yeah, sorry, but...
Remember, you were the one telling me, you suggested that we should have done
exactly. It was quite lucky because my plan had always been to go straight from the airport down to London ready to film. So quite luckily, I'd already got my outfits ready for filming and an extra couple of days worth of stuff to stay in a travel lodge or whatever it was we would be staying in with me in Iceland. So that worked out quite well. Otherwise, I'd just be wearing clothes that I'd been wearing on holiday for the filming.
Yeah, and it's a good segue for that. I think the first lot of filming that you did, you may not have chosen the best clothes to be wearing for that.
No, I think I told you about this in a live stream, but yeah, so because of the crazy world of filming TV shows, sorry to break any misconceptions you've got here, but for a challenge, if we were told that you'd got 12 hours to build it, that was genuine. We had 12 hours to build it, but it wasn't necessarily one 12-hour block. It was probably filmed over 3 or 4 days, but then whatever you are wearing at the start of filming that episode, you have to wear for the whole of it, in case when they're editing, they put some bits the wrong way around, so it doesn't look silly if you're swapping outfits all the time. And I was stupid enough to wear a hoodie and a t-shirt, which meant that in a dance studio, not a TV studio, a dance studio that was filled with lights and no air conditioning, I was sweating absolute buckets because I was stupid enough to be wearing a jumper for the filming of that, which I regret immensely.
Yeah, because it's the sort of thing, because this was the first show, as what you're saying, it was in a dance studio, so it wasn't even a proper
TV studio with air conditioning and a huge space. It was just, this is a pilot, we need to save some money on this, so we've managed to get into a dance studio which had many flaws. Like, for instance, the floor, because the stand studio was sprung, so every time a tripod came past with a camera on it, the floor goes down and your desk goes down with the Lego model that you're trying to build at the time, and it was just not great.
Right, cool. Yeah. The funny stories that you can tell later on rather than live through at the time, because also
Yeah.
too, I think it didn't even have air conditioning, and then that presented subsequent.
A few weeks in, they rented in some air conditioning units, but they made so much noise we couldn't have them turned on while the cameras were filming, which is great fun. But so sort of every hour they would stop filming for 10 minutes or 5 minutes just so they could bring these pipes in and point some cold air at you for a bit, which was so refreshing.
Yeah.
But then you knew as soon as they were turned off, you got another hour in the sweatshop, of which I know people don't necessarily work up a sweat when building Lego, but when there's time constraints and it is a big competition and you're being filmed and then there's all the lights on you, it gets quite over the top and quite sweaty.
Yeah. And just with that, because it was filmed over 3 days, or potentially depending on how it works out and things, how were you initially given briefs and things? I know this is a little bit of pulling the curtain back behind TV, but having worked around TV and things like that, I'm just curious as to how those would have worked.
So for some of the challenges, we were sent an email saying, look, the first bit, you're going to be building this. For some of the challenges, it was complete surprise. So I am pulling the curtain back a little bit now. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling anything. But before we actually started the filming, we had a phone call from one of the production team saying, we want to do some filming with you and Steve in normal life to get some inspiration for some of the rounds. So we knew that round one was a banquet and we'd have to build a chair for the banquet and a banquet. So me and Steve tried to be clever. And because we were building a Chinese banquet, we were like, well, we could film us an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet and we can just eat everything. And they basically turned around and said, that's great, but that's only episode 1. And we're pretty confident that we've seen what you've built. You should get past episode 1. So we ended up filming at a theme park and at a butterfly house with lemurs and things, which is great because we knew that and that filming should be used for episode 2 and episode 3 out of 4 episodes. So that was quite nice, and luckily we did get through that far. But it did inspire some of our builds, but none of that footage got used. The only episode where any of the sort of inspiration footage was used was episode 1, and it was Daniel looking around, I think, his local branch of Wix at toilets, and Jade and Michaela were looking at their town hall at a stained glass window, and they're the only 2 bits of footage used from that whole thing. It's incredible the amount of filming they do that then never ever gets used. They were at my house one night filming with Zoe for 4 hours. Ooh. And she was on TV for less than 10 seconds, I think. Like, just so much filming happens. But yeah, so sorry, I just realized the question was actually about how we found out about the briefs. So we knew the briefs for episode 1, 2, and 3 for the main challenges. So the banquet, a theme park, and the animals of nature of some description. But the issue was, because me and Steve were teachers and working full time, every point that we weren't working, we were filming. Every point that we weren't filming, we were working. We didn't really get to do any planning as such. It was more just sort of ideas that we passed to each other by texting each other. Whereas people like Jessica and Foylan, because Jessica at the time was running her own nursery, she was self-employed, so she could put a lot of time into it. She designed most of her models beforehand, took photos, and could use them almost like instructions. So she knew exactly what she was building, knew exactly what bricks she needed. We had been emailed Excel spreadsheets of all the bricks that we should have access to, so she knew exactly what bricks she would need for everything, which in some ways helped her because she knew exactly what she could build. But in other ways didn't work because she might, so I can't think of a specific example, but there was a brick that she really needed to use, and she knew that she should have, let's say 10 of them in hers and Foylan's brick pile. But then if you can't find them, because we didn't sort the bricks, they were sorted for us at that point, she would spend lots and lots of time looking for the specific elements. Whereas if me and Steve were going, right, we know we want to build a lemur, right, well, I need some black, some white, some grey plate. get it out. Oh, I haven't got that piece. Well, we'll use this piece and this piece instead. We could do it quite fluidly. Me and Steve worked really well together because I do things off the cuff and Steve really likes to plan. And by mixing that together, we got that sort of perfect balance, which worked really well.
Yeah. So then you had the flexibility to go in each direction. So
this is it. Jessica is one of the best Lego builders I know. She's absolutely, her work's just stunning. But because her and Voilon were complete planners, they found it difficult to make anything on the cuff, and that possibly was their downfall.
Yeah, being able to do that complete, as you say, off the cuff and just very much spontaneous type build and deal with the situation that you're handed. Because just going back to the point that you raised there, like what you said before, you've just given the bricks, but it's not in a system where you've sorted and things over the course.
This is it. We know that on that shelf there is mine and Steve's bricks, and these boxes here are mine and Steve's bricks. But we've got no idea where everything is. We didn't get sort of time to sit down and look at where all the bricks are and make notes of where all the bricks are. And because it's just sort of showrunners that would have done the sorting, there wasn't even particularly any logic to it. So you might have one drawer. I'm trying to think now. We had a drawer that was filled with sharks, Lego sharks, which is amazing. But nobody knew where their heads were. It was just the body missing a head. And I think it took us until almost the end of the second episode, which was probably several weeks of filming in, before we actually found any heads for the sharks that we could use in our pirate theme park. In episode 1, the medieval banquet made by Nicholas and Koba, they used the sharks as sardines, but they had them all face down in a pot because they hadn't found the heads of the sharks at that point. We got something crazy like 500 plates that you meant to put a trapdoor in, but not a single trapdoor. What can you use that plate for? Absolutely nothing.
And was it the sort of thing where, once you did the builds and things like that, did you then have to sort the pieces back which were excess, or you just sort of, that was up to the showrunners to just sort of deal with?
So once we'd started filming, it was completely down to us. So for example, in episode 2, we needed some of the bricks that had been used in episode 1 in the banquet for our theme park, so we had to rip apart the builds, which is all good and well, but then you don't have time to actually sort it back in, because the only time you can have with the bricks is the filming time, so it's cutting into the time you've got to build. So destroying your builds takes time. It's also quite emotional because you used that and it got you through to round 2. We had to destroy our theme park from round 2 to get into round 3 and use that for some of the builds in that. And it just becomes quite a mess. I think sometimes when they were doing sort of pickups after time had stopped, we could have some time to tidy, but it was probably only half an hour. And in that time, you're sort of just chucking stuff into really useful boxes to make a clear workspace ready for the next episode, rather than going, right, let's get a system and sort this out. We just didn't have the time.
Yeah. And I guess too, if you're talking about the other guys who planned everything out, that would probably freak them out a little bit as well, because it's like, how do I deal with this? Like, so.
I must say, this is what I don't understand with the American and the Australian version of Lego Masters. They just have the brick pit, which is a room where everybody goes in and gets whatever bricks they need. Like, if 2 teams both want all the green 2x4s, how are they going to work that out? Whereas in the UK version, each team had their own bricks. Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
Did they ever? I'm just trying to remember if there was an instance on the show. But were you allowed to share with each other, or did you just not do it, or how did that sort of work?
There was an agreement that we could do trades, but we had to do it on camera, and they had to be agreed with the production team and with both teams that wanted to do trade-offs. In which case, because it needs to be fair and above board. And a trade that works quite well for episode 1, you might be shooting yourself in the foot with for episode 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah, those logistics of just sort of thinking it through. And
we did sort of think about deals like, if somebody's going to be going home, can you trade them 1 2x4 brick for every brick in their collection? But they wouldn't allow that, sadly. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's sort of like getting more and more pieces there. So there's just a question which has come through, which might be a good time to put it up. What was it like to meet Matthew Ashton?
It was incredible to meet Matthew Ashton. He was a bit of a hero of mine beforehand. And now it's even better because I can call him a friend. I wouldn't say often, but I occasionally DM him and we'll have a bit of a chat between us. I've been lucky enough since Lego Masters to go out to Billund a couple of times and meet up with him and have a drink, etc. So it's really nice to be able to know him. And it was amazing to meet him. He's an incredible guy in like every way.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent. And do you sort of keep in touch with the other contestants from the show, or you just sort of now time's elapsed, or what's the sort of relationship there?
On the whole, we've sort of drifted apart. Occasionally, we've still got a group chat on WhatsApp, and occasionally we'll send like a happy Christmas across, or when it was announced that Steve's typewriter is going to be made into a set, it sort of lit up again, and we started chatting again. But it's 3 years ago now. People have kind of moved on. Some people aren't into Lego anymore. It's probably horrible to think about, but some of the kids that were involved are probably entering their dark ages now. And who knows if they're going to be AFOLs or not.
Coming out the other side of it, yeah. And something which I've seen elsewhere, in terms of you're talking about you have your 12 hours, and within that you'd have to do your build, and then if you got any questions, and trying to build and answer questions at the same time. And there was also a bit of a process around, answering the question in a particular way. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so under UK broadcasting rules, no TV show can be an advert for a product apart from occasional product placement, which means a show like Lego Masters is a bit difficult. So during a full hour of Lego Masters, I think they were allowed to use the word Lego either 3 or 4 times. But because you're going to end up with hours and hours of footage for each show, the safest way to ensure that is to make sure that when we're talking, we don't mention the word Lego at all when talking. So you have to refer to building bricks, or when I'm building with my bricks, or plastic building blocks. We almost had to invent a thesaurus for just the word Lego bricks or Lego, because we weren't allowed to say it. So it might be that you answered a question, the answer came from the heart, and you were spouting it out for a couple of minutes, and then it'd get to the end and the producer would go, "That's really great, Nate, but could you do it again? But this time don't mention the word Lego, please." And oh, great. Well, I've got no idea what I just said, so I'll give it a go. And this happens so often. And of course, while that's happening, you're probably building with Lego, so that's on your mind. But also they're cutting into your time to build. If you've got 12 hours and they've spent 4 hours of it on the whole asking you questions, you've only had 8 hours where you're actually building and getting on with things at speed. And the horrible one was, what makes good TV when you're building Lego? When it breaks. So they were always after the moment that something might break. So it sounds horrible. We had to tell them if we were doing something that we thought might go wrong, so they could aim a camera at us just in case it did. And then, of course, when it does go wrong, you have to then talk about it afterwards when you're trying to fix the mistake that you've just made. And it's really annoying. I remember at one point, it might have been in the final, like inside being very close to tears, because I think it was the guy sat at the desk. His whole right arm had exploded in my hands. And I was there like, oh, it's fine because it's Lego bricks. Sorry, it's plastic bricks. So if it was clay, it would be ruined. But now I can just pick these bricks up and build it hopefully in the same way that I built it before, and everything will be fine, and just keeping a brave face on it until the camera points the other way. And then, oh my God, what have I done? Because he didn't want that to be on telly.
It's sort of like, yeah, they particularly with some the live YouTube sort of things and like that, everybody's after the drop test.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, can you just drop it again? It's sort of like, yeah, no, that's not really.
No, I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right.
So, did you find with that, like after, say, the first episode or whatever, then you really started to factor that in terms of, okay, I've got 12 hours to do a build, but really it's only 8? Or was it just like, we're just building?
I don't think we really factored in them taking up the time with the questions and stuff, because even though now I think about it, they were taking up the time. In the moment, you're still building with bricks, you're still getting on with it, just not as quick. And actually, a couple of times when you're answering the question, you realize I've done that completely wrong. So I need to take all that apart and do it again, because I wasn't concentrating. I was concentrating on answering your question. instead of concentrating on my build. What we did do was sort of write to-do lists of if after a day of filming we went back to the hotel, me and Steve would sit down with a notepad and paper and go, right, here's what we've got through, here's the amount of time left, so we need to be spending about an hour on this, maybe 2 hours on this. So we know these are the things we want to get done. Steve would put his name next to some, I put my name next to some to try and get through. We know that by the next day of filming, we need to have got through this. These things are superfluous. If we get the time, we can add them in. If we don't get the time, we can leave them out, and that sort of thing. Like I ended up, after Lego Masters finished, building a flamingo's head, because in episode 3 I really wanted to build a flamingo, but it wasn't an integral part of our build.
Yeah.
But I still got the idea that I would really like to build a flamingo's head, so I ended up doing it myself, because it was one of those extra little bits that we just didn't get the time for in the actual episode.
Yeah. So, because I think in the, what was it? Was it the 4th episode? You could see there that you guys were sitting there, and you had the children come in to give their stories that you then had to build, and you had notes there, and so you've been hinting at it. What were you allowed in terms of being able to bring notes in and plans and notes sort of thing? Was it just you could bring anything in, or was it censored, or how did that work?
So on that particular one, where it was the children, they told us our story, but it was on a TV screen. And then afterwards, we got to ask 3 questions to each child. So me and Steve, between us, only got 3 questions to ask our kid about anything to do with it. Yeah. And it's really difficult when you can only ask 3 questions. So we were given a notepad each, and we could make as many notes as we wanted to while the story was playing. They were very nice to us and played it twice, so that we could make extra notes the second time round. And then, it was only 3 questions to the child that you'd been given, which made it really difficult. So, for example, we'd got our monster in our story, and I've forgotten the child's name, which is really bad of me. Yeah. But she didn't mention in her story what colour the monster was. So Steve was dying to ask her, what colour is the monster? And her answer was something like, he starts off grey, but by the end of the story, he's all multicoloured. Which is brilliant when you've got to make a physical model out of Lego bricks. And Steve was like, well, I really wish I hadn't asked that question at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, thank you. Great answer. That's really helpful. Oh, my days. How are we going to do this?
It's like, I've scored an own goal there.
And it was at that point, I think, that she also mentioned that the monster was fluffy. Brilliant. So great. We end up multicolored, and he's fluffy. Have you seen Lego bricks before? Because this is not going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe some of the new elements in the last year might be a little bit more fluffy, like a Mario Cloud. But yeah, it's like.
But at that time, it's only 3 years ago. But yeah, it was just brilliant. We can't do this. We've just got to make the best of a bad deal here.
So yeah, it's sort of asking those sorts of questions and that. But so were you able to take in, because you're given, as we sort of talked about earlier, a bit of a heads up as to what the themes would be most of the time. What was the extent of stuff that you could take into the set in terms of notes or plans? Or
I'm trying to remember. They encouraged us to take notes in, because you may have seen some of the episodes. They actually took photographs of some of our notes and did animated bits of them. And they liked the idea of them being stuck on the wall behind us as well, to make it look more like we were hard at work, I think. But ours were mainly just sketches, really, with annotations on, whereas some of the teams had printed folders of stuff, which they didn't show because it doesn't look that great on the TV if you're basically following your own instructions. It doesn't make good telly, does it? But it makes incredible looking models. So mine and Steve's were mainly, just some sketches of the overall, what we'd like this to look like. I think for the episode 3, it was a sheet of A4 paper that had just got a picture hand drawn of each of the animals we wanted to try and get into our scene.
Yeah. It's interesting because, just for this, I went back and rewatched some of the episodes, and Steve lately on his Instagram, maybe others, been drawing the minifigures and things. And it's like, that sort of thing. So
Steve is definitely the better artist out of the two of us. He did the majority of our sketches because he's really good with his Copic markers and makes things look incredible. His Pirate Island sketch for episode 2 was stunning.
Yeah. It's always interesting to sort of see, how much of that was actually done by the contestant themselves and how much of it was actually, the graphics department sort of got a hold of it to try to make it look like.
I think like 99.9% of it was the contestants. If you look at some of the Guy and Abraham sketches, you can probably tell.
Yeah.
Although, let you into a behind-the-scenes secret, I can't remember whose it was. I think it was Abraham's mum did a lot of the designing and planning for them. And they'd got folders of what to do when and timescales and things. They got told off in episode 3 because to save time and paper, their mum had done a cross-section of the tree stump that they were building, but she'd done a quarter of it so that they could then replicate that three more times and make a full tree stump. And they didn't get the right end of the stick of that, so they just made a quarter of a tree stump because that's what their notes had got on it of how to build that shape, because it had just got a quarter circle. And they got a bit of a telling off behind the scenes in the green room by the parents.
That would have been an interesting one. And just too, when you're going through and you're building, how was the feedback presented to you guys and the contestant and the other contestants?
It was it's another one of those ruining TV moments. So for every build we did, we had to receive 3 pieces of positive feedback and 3 pieces of negative feedback. But that meant that when they actually air the show, they can pick and choose what they're going to show from the feedback to sort of add to the narrative, along with why people are going home, why people are staying, etc. So on TV, when me and Steve were on the actual program, all of our feedback was overwhelmingly positive from Matthew, which made it look like, oh wow, they're doing really well. Yeah, these guys will probably get to the final. Whereas in real life, we'd had some absolutely crippling negative feedback, and then just some sort of blasé, well, the colours are nice, and overall it looks quite good. So we were sort of like, brilliant, we're going home. Every single week, we were like, we're going home again. For the challenge with the children, we genuinely thought we were going home at that point, so much so we were almost in tears off camera. And Steve took it to heart because Matthew had come along, and basically his 3 positive bits of feedback were about my builds, and then his 3 negative ones were just about Steve's builds. And of course, Matthew hadn't watched his build necessarily. He'd just come in every now and again and just observed little bits. He hadn't seen the whole thing. So he got no idea who built what. And the fact that he was just slating Steve's work at that point. And we were both like, oh my days, we're going home. I put on a brave face because at that point, Steve was thinking we were going home and it was because of him. Of course, it wouldn't have been. It would be both of us. We were a team. We're like, no, it's fine, Steve. He has to give us positive and negative. He was just trying to find some negatives. And yeah, it was really not fun to receive the negative feedback at all. And because we were one of the very few teams of 2 adults, we got really brutal negative feedback, whereas the kids would get sort of low-level negative feedback that they could mistake for a compliment.
As kids they can handle and not be completely destroyed, where
exactly
you can tear the adult apart and say, you're an adult, so
this was it. Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Now, was the feedback sort of constructive, or it was very much TV negative feedback to really heighten the drama aspect? Or
it was constructive, it was helpful. So I'm trying to think. Episode 2, I made a beautiful pirate drop ride, which coincidentally, the drop ride mechanism for the haunted house is very, very similar to. I'll say no more on that. But got told off for it being very blocky because, of course, it was it was made to look like a crow's nest and a sail and a mast off a pirate ship, but it was very blocky. So Matthew's feedback at that point was, you build it too blocky, we need to see more natural shapes, etc., that sort of thing, which meant that in episode 3, we completely stayed away from any angular corners. We tried to be as sculptural as we possibly could, and it really helped us. Episode 3 was probably our best episode.
Just trying to remember, is that the
nature walk?
The nature one, yeah, with the gleamer and the camera and everything.
Yeah.
So
that worked for us very well. And it's such a long time ago, and of course, like as I say, the negative bits didn't make it to the TV show for us anyway. Just for other contestants who then left, it works really well. And I imagine The Apprentice and Bake Off and all those sorts of shows will have the same deal with giving both positive and negative, and then picking and choosing when the final cut gets made which bits you put in. It works quite well.
Yeah, no, I've spoken with somebody who's been on the UK Apprentice, and he's sort of like, sometimes what appeared on episode 1 was actually comment from episode 4, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's really just how they are crafting that narrative, and it's sort of like, it
upset me when I found out that in The Apprentice they film all of them on the first day getting in the taxi, because some of the producers who worked on ours had worked on The Apprentice and things in the past. That was like mind blown moment. I genuinely believe they got their bag and they went in the taxi and they filmed them getting into the taxi when they got fired. Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all with that. Because there's something else I want to get to on that, but just in terms of covering off the final build that you guys did, I'll just sort of see if I can find a quick URL for it or something, just so that if people can sort of understand what it is if they haven't seen it, because I know there's some American ones and some other people really should have prepared this in advance. Great live TV.
But I don't think any of the international versions of Lego Masters have built something that's 2 meters square, must say.
There's a little bit of... Okay, I'll just see if I can share the screen here. Bear with me 1 second. So you can sort of see it here, full size. Oh, yeah, full size person, a typewriter with.
There's also a life-size child behind him as well, and all the toys and the desk and everything else all created out of Lego.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can find a reverse angle shot of that. I think kind of seeing part of it. Yeah. It's just trying to. Yeah, I know.
I'm still building it.
Anyhow, I mean, yeah.
It's difficult because we weren't allowed to take any photographs while we were building these things, so it's not like we even have our own photos of them.
As well that you can go off. So anyhow, I'll just put that there for a sec. So just in terms of how, with that final build, were you given briefs and constraints, and how did you end up deciding on what you were going to do? And can you just sort of talk about some of those things?
So for the final brief, we were told we could build whatever we wanted. So we were asked right at the start in the auditions, or maybe even on the application, if we could build anything, what would it be and why? And it was whatever we wrote is completely different to this. Me and Steve discussed lots of different ideas, and then we finally set up on this one because it sort of acted as a metaphor for us. So it was all about embracing your inner child, not ignoring your inner child. And if you could see the whole build, you'd see that the adults, so we've got this 2 meter square, and it was divided in a diagonal across the middle with the adult on one side and the child on the other. So the adult had got a big rip in his back, and then the chair behind him was broken where his inner child had escaped. So on the adult side, it was dull, it was boring, it was a guy working in the office. Everything was grey, black, white, or brown to make it very monotone, very boring. And then in the sort of contrast to it, behind him, the child was having fun, playing with his toys. It was full colour, it was bright primary colours, and it was just this complete contrast of don't ignore your inner child, embrace your inner child. And that's sort of what me and Steve did when we're stressed at work. You come home, you build with a bit of Lego, you sort of chill out a bit with the bricks, and it was just very personal to us, but at the same time being something that a lot of people can relate to, and being dragged down and feeling stressed at work, but actually using your hobbies as an escape. And I think because it appealed to a lot of people, it worked quite well.
Yeah, it certainly. I just haven't been able to find the one with the inner child, but for anybody who hasn't seen this before, this is only, I guess, a third of it, because if that sort of thing. So you've got the whole elements behind it, as what you're saying, with it ripped out, and so it had that really strong narrative piece to it. And I guess going back to when you're doing the 2015 show and the 2016 show with Steve, in terms of the MOCs that you were doing, you stayed to stuff which was close to home.
Well, this is it, and I think that's it. If you build what you know, then it's going to be more natural and more forthcoming when it comes to it being created, if that makes sense. Stick to what you know, and it's a lot more difficult to go wrong with it.
Yeah, it'll be easier to put in all those little details and narrative elements, and you're not having to create something from scratch.
Exactly. I don't know. It's easily identifiable. Any child can recognize a child playing with toys. Any child can recognize someone being bored, sat at work, and any adult can recognize both those things as well. You don't need to add too much into it to try and tell a bigger story. Make it blindingly obvious what the story is from the start, and it works.
Yeah. And this might be then going off, and again, another one of these TV moments. I know with some of these TV shows, when they have competitions like this, they'll actually film, and you got down to 2 teams, they'll film both teams winning, and it won't be until broadcast they'll say which one. How did they treat the announcement and everything like that with you guys? Did they do that, or it's just sort of like, actually, you guys are one, just keep it quiet?
So we'd signed a lot of non-disclosure agreements, and basically had the threat of, if anybody outside of the TV production company finds out what happens, we could be sued for the whole amount that it cost to put on the whole TV show. So we were told on the night of filming the final that we won. It was not nice because we were there for many hours, and then when they do the final announcement, and they do that TV thing of waiting and filming your face, and on TV it might be 5 to 10 seconds. They waited, I think, a full 2 minutes because they really, really want to see the suspense on your face. So they go, and the winner is, and then it's just complete silence, awkwardly, for 2 whole minutes. So they can get at the 1 minute 50 seconds. At that point, that's the footage they use when you're really, really tense. Like, just tell us, we really need to know right now. And so yeah, we found out that night, and the people who we'd brought along to the final, we found out that night. It was on while I was at school, so I told the kids at school that actually, when the final was on that evening, I would be going down to London to film it live to find out, because I had no idea who'd won it yet. And they sort of bought that because the timings would have worked. But yeah, so we'd known for several weeks, but the issue was we'd only just finished filming the final. I think there was only like a week between us finishing filming the final and them airing episode 1. So it was such a quick turnaround. Luckily, we didn't have to stay secret for very long because it's not easy to hide a huge Lego trophy when people are coming around to your house. Luckily, Steve took it he had custody first for it. But yeah, it becomes a bit awkward to try and, what's the big yellow trophy for? I can't tell you. Like, we weren't allowed to say anything. I think I've mentioned it to you before, Matt, but we weren't allowed to tell anyone we were even on the show, let alone how far we got through it. So at one point, the adverts were on TV, where we were very clearly on the advert, and we were talking, and it was our voices. So I'm like, it's someone who looks a lot like me and also likes Lego and sounds exactly the same as me. And we sort of emailed the production crew like, this is ridiculous. Can we please tell people we're in this show? Because they've seen that we're in this show and we're having to deny it. We'd got a lot of AFOLs who had already worked out that we were probably in it because me and Steve got filmed a lot more than they did in the auditions. So they probably guessed that they probably got in it, but we weren't allowed to tell them. So we're like, no, we didn't make it into the show.
Because wasn't there also an aspect of you then had your stuff displayed in Billund, and you were going over there for something or other, and this is before the results were released or some weird aspect?
So yeah. So we didn't find out what the prize was, which annoyed us, we're not going to lie, until just before we found out we'd won. So Matthew and Melvin told us, and as part of your prize, your build will be displayed in Lego House, this brand new place that hadn't opened at the time of filming. And then they mentioned that in episode 1 when they actually showed the TV show. So like we knew all along, and we didn't know they were going to mention it in episode 1. And at the time that episode 1 was going to be filmed, I was actually going across to Billund to go to a special preview event at Lego House. So there were so many AFOLs from around the world invited to go to Lego House and try it out before it had opened to the public. So I told people that I was going to Billund for a holiday to go to Lego House. And while I was flying over there, I was sat on a plane, they aired episode 1. So then suddenly I was like, oh my God, you won because you went there. And you've been to Lego House, that's the place. Like, no, I went there because that's genuinely my holiday and I was going for a preview event. And because it was shown like while I was in the air, I hadn't even seen it. And I had to get a dodgy internet link, well, a dodgy internet connection and a link that the TV production company had sent me to watch it online. I was like, brilliant. Now everybody thinks I'm going to have won because they know I'm in Billund right now to go to Lego House.
You need to
I tell them I've not won, I'm lying to them, but I need to tell them this is genuinely a holiday that I'm on right now.
And this is where it goes back to that psych test right at the beginning before filming.
Yeah. And it was a bit strange because there was they planned as well to be able to sell our series to other countries to show it, of course, on Netflix or similar. So it ended up being both our build and also Nicholas and Koba, who came second, their build as well. And while we were in Billund, we weren't allowed to tell people who had won and who came second in case it got shown in Denmark or in a country where the tourists were from. So all the footage that was filmed on social media with Lego as well, it was, and these are the finalists from the UK version of Lego Masters, and not able to tell anyone, well, actually, ours was the one who won and theirs came second. We couldn't mention it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, just all the different time ways and the other magic aspect of TV. It's like you need to make the ad so at least when you're lying to people, it's consistent with what's not TV.
This is it. Like they were almost making out that we were going to be told there who was going to be the winner. That's why we didn't know who'd won. This was the final. They would be filming it here. Like, no, not at all.
That's not how it's really going. Okay, so just looking at that, just looking at some notes and things. Maybe is there any sort of other general sort of things that you wanted to talk about with Lego Masters, or any other experiences, or anything of that flavor, apart from the typewriter? Because I think we'll come back to the typewriter a little bit separately.
Yeah. There's not anything that I can think of off the top of my head at the moment.
Okay.
Trying to think of anything else. But no, on the whole, it was absolutely brilliant fun. It took about 6 months for us to make the show. But yeah, absolutely brilliant fun. Stressful at times because you're locked down, you've not got your phone with you, you're just in a studio building Lego. So it's really stressful, but at the same time, it's really good fun. You've got 500,000 bricks to play with and build what you like with one of your best mates. So fantastic opportunity. But then the lights and the pressure and the cameras. So it's a bit of a roller coaster, but incredible. One of the best parts of, well, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Definitely the best thing I've ever done with Lego.
Yeah, it's as what you're saying. You get the good with the bad. It's sort of like, well, there's X number of millions of bricks there to be dealing with, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you've got the constant interruptions, and it's a working TV set. So
yeah,
sort of in a dance studio.
In a dance studio, yeah.
Well, what I might do then is, I know there's been a few questions come through on the chat from different people on this part of it here, so I might just run through it. I mean, we did the Matthew one before, Sean Studios. Wait, I knew I recognized you. You're from Lego Masters as well.
I am.
That's good. Can I have your autograph? Bricksmith was in before. Woo! Good to see you in, Bricksmith. That's great. Here's another interesting question. Do you think we'll see the return of Lego Masters UK? And if it did, do you think it would be the same or different?
I would love to see the return of Lego Masters UK. Honestly, I don't know how they do it different. Of course, Australia did it different, and then America and the Netherlands and Belgium have sort of taken that version of it, which makes it a lot more dramatic and over the top. Whereas ours was very much more British Bake Off rather than Apprentice. And we had the friendly side and we had the children involved. Of course, their version has no children. So I don't know at the minute if perhaps Channel 4 and Lego are thinking, do we want the American version or do we want, well, Australian version, I should say, or do we want this UK version? I'd like to see it return as the nice, friendly family show that it with children involved that it is in the UK rather than the over-the-top dramatic version in Australia. But obviously that's getting good ratings over there, getting good ratings over in the US. That might be the way that Lego now prefers it. I don't know. But it might not be the way that Channel 4 prefers it. So who knows? But in a nutshell, yes, I would love to see it back.
Yeah. That was one of the interesting things. I mean, MasterChef, I think, is from mine, which sticks out as the example. Obviously, you've had the UK version, which is going for years and years and years, which we'd seen in Australia. And then when Australia did it, they did it very much with that dramatic angle and everything. So it shifted away from being about the food more to
more about the
drama aspect and really dragging it out. Like, you know, and then it was funny because then years later, it came back to the UK, the MasterChef version, as the Australian version, where it was more the competition aspect and the drama and everything like that. And yeah, it's just interesting to see that.
Something there. Like, don't get me wrong, you can't have it too much one way because let's face it, there's nothing more boring than just watching somebody build with Lego. You've got to have some level of drama in there. But I feel the UK version had enough level of drama there because it was a competition, but it was a fun and friendly competition at the same time. There was a lot less drama. I'm not always sure that much drama is needed. But
yeah. How did you find? My general impression of the Lego community is generally it's not a competition. Like there might be elements of it, but generally people there at shows to show off their creativity. Yeah, sort of thing.
Well, this is it. This is sort of how me and Steve saw it. Like, this was a complete new opportunity. No one judges, or no one did judge things at shows. It was just do it because it makes you happy. Do it because it makes the visitors happy. And I think I don't know if it made it to TV, but we said like Lego Masters was like the Olympics for us. This is our sport. This is the first time we've had a proper competition for it. So it was a great opportunity for that. But I think now across the AFOL community, people are judging people's work more than they did beforehand. Like, on a personal level, I definitely feel people are judging my work more than before Lego Masters existed, which isn't always a good thing, I must say.
And do you think that's because, it's sort of like, well, you are the winner, therefore you are the best, therefore if I want to be the best, I need to do things better than you or pull your stuff apart?
Well, this is it. And I had quite a lot, like, almost immediately after Lego Masters, I had a lot of AFOLs at shows going, well, that's not that great. I could do better than that. How come you're the Lego Master? Why aren't I the Lego Master? Like, because I went on the TV show and I did really well on it. But I'm not saying I'm the best Lego builder in the UK. I'm far from it. However, I won a competition on telly. That's very different things. But you don't have to compare stuff you see on TV to stuff you make at home or you show at shows.
Yeah, and I think it's very much time specific because even with Lego, you look at it, and I think we were talking a little bit before, like the pieces that you have now versus 5 years ago. So if you're comparing different countries, you can't really get there.
Well, this is it. And like, the competition isn't to find out who's the best Lego builder around. It's the competition to find out the pair of people who can work well together under time pressure in a hot studio and produce the best thing in that room at that time.
Yeah,
that's what you've been found the winner of. You've not been found the winner of the best Lego builder in the UK.
Yeah. You have the greatest technical ability or whatever
out
it is.
Of the people who made the auditions,
yeah, it's within the context of that environment that you were sitting in.
Exactly, this is it.
At that point in time. Yeah, so I think just going off that too. How would you feel about obviously you've had the other competitions going around for a couple of years now, different winners. If they turned around and went, right, we're going to do an all-star version and take the top winners from every country and things like that, would that be something you're up for, or what?
That would be really cool to be a part of, don't get me wrong, but then there's the fear of you not winning that. So at the minute, like when we first did it, me and Steve were the only Lego Masters in the world. We got the first series in the first country to do it. So we were the first winners, and therefore we were the Lego Masters of the whole planet, which is an incredible thing to think. There is the fear of if they did something like that, we aren't going to win, and then people could argue that you're no longer Lego Masters. But at the same time, be really good fun to be a part of.
Yeah. So it's just that double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You've obviously got a little one at the moment, and as a parent, that time away at this point in time,
it would be a lot of time away and not something I'd want to do probably.
Yeah,
as I say, it took about 6 months of weekends and school holidays for us to film series 1, so that's a lot of time now
to go through and do that again. So I guess it would just come down to the right format and things like that, because you see that occasionally with I think the American Survivor show. They like to do that every once in a while. But I'm just trying to think. I don't think they've ever done it cross countries. So probably hypothetical. We don't have to worry about. And sort of Sean Studios, how long does it take to film an episode, excluding edit and everything else like that?
To film one episode depends on the episode, but you're looking at filming time probably 4 days of filming. Maybe 5, maybe 6. The final was, I think, 12 days of filming. In fact, including the kids bit, 13 days of filming, I think the final was.
And that was over weekends and
the final itself, so us making our final build was actually in the 6-week holidays, the summer holidays. So we'd got just under 2 weeks, including days off, down in London, where we were sort of expenses paid, staying in a travel lodge. So that one was sort of a long slog. We were going down to the studio each morning, which was in an old dairy at that point, and just filming for a whole day of building and stuff. And then I think we had 1 day off in between. And for our day off, I managed to wangle it so that I knew a friend of a friend who worked in the Lego hub. So even on our day off, we still spent the day doing Lego because we went to visit the hub officers in London. But there, we were warned by the production company not to tell anyone how we knew each other. We were just a group of friends, even though everyone there is a Lego employee. It was crazy.
It's like just this world of pretend. And for that final sort of ones, were you finding that basically if you weren't sort of in the studio filming and building and things like that, then even when you're away from it, you and Steve were just constantly sort of trying to see where you're at? And
well, this was it. In the hotel room in an evening, it sometimes got a little awkward because, of course, we were in the same hotel as Nicholas and Koba, but we'd go out maybe for an evening meal, but then we'd almost rush to get back to our hotel rooms because we'd be making notes on what we've done so far that day, what still needs to get done over the next few days. And even though we were really good friends as the four of us, we didn't want to give too much away if we felt we were doing really well or if we felt like, oh crap, we're not doing well at all, because then they'd find out and either make them feel bad or make them feel like they got the upper hand. So it was slightly awkward, but at the same time, it worked all right. But yeah, there was a lot of frantic, right, here's exactly what we need to get done tomorrow.
So it's sort of like within that 2-week period for that final episode, you're pretty much always switched on to it or thinking about it or whatever. So it's not like you ever really got a chance to just shut off, because I'm sure in the back of your mind you're like, well, if we use this 1 hour and we didn't do it and something went wrong and
well, this is it. And it was just things sort of can take over, can't they?
Yeah. So leading off from that, there's another question which has come up here. Hi, was it tired being on the set and feeling under pressure all the time? I bet it was stressful at times. I think we've touched on parts of that. I mean, is there any other?
Yes, it was tiring. It was stressful at times. But as I say, it was really good fun at the same time. The bit that was difficult is the fact that your weekends are given up filming, And then during the week, I was working full time as a teacher, and then in evenings, marking books, planning lessons, etc. So for practically 6 months, didn't really get a rest, which is quite tough going.
Yeah, it's hard when you're just working or effectively doing some form of work where you just
And also, you can't tell anyone that you're making this TV show. So if people are like, "Oh, do you want to come around for a drink or a barbecue at the weekend?" You're like, "Really sorry, but I can't. I've got something else." "Oh, could you get this work done over the weekend?" Like, not this weekend. Can't do that at all. Sorry.
What about this weekend? Yeah, no, not really.
Probably not going to be that weekend either. At the moment, in 2 weeks' time, I might be able to. Depends what I find out this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this is more a comment. I think it was just your explanation. You were talking about your final build with Steve with the inner child. So that's great with that one. And then we had, do you have a trophy? If you,
I do. It's up there. I'll grab it if you want.
and yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I think you, as you were saying earlier, when you first won it, you had to hide it away, and it sort of went between you and Steve.
Well, Steve had it first. It's quite large, as I say. It's difficult to show on camera at once. If I do it that way,
yeah. Outside. There we go.
There we go.
So you obviously then didn't get one each.
We didn't get one each off of the TV show or off of Lego, but I actually put up a photograph on Facebook as a bit of a joke. It was a screenshot taken from the final episode of me having a hug with Matthew Ashton and Steve running off with the trophy in the background. And I just put the caption of, "And that was the last time I ever saw the trophy," which was sort of tongue-in-cheek, but was the truth at the time, because me and Steve hadn't met up to swap over and give me the trophy. And Duncan Titchmarsh, who was the Lego certified professional of the UK at the time, who was half owner of Bright Bricks, messaged me saying, "Would you like another trophy?" So I said, "Yeah, great. How much will it cost?" Like, "Oh no, our treat. We think that you should have got one each," because, as I say, me and Steve are 2.5 hours apart by car. It's difficult to share one trophy that's glued if you're that far away from each other.
Yeah.
So me and Steve went down to Bright Bricks' workshop, which is quite cool. And we start to build a second trophy by looking at the first trophy and sort of copying it. And then they finished it for us and delivered it to us at a Lego show. So Steve's got the one that me and him made. He thinks that's cool because it's the Lego Masters trophy, that part of it was actually made by the Lego Masters. And then I've got the original one, which I think is cool because I own the original Lego Masters trophy for the world. So we've both got a trophy that we're really proud of. And yeah, but it's really big. And as much as it is an incredible trophy, there's only so many places you can find to display it. It doesn't fit on a bookcase or anything. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, I think I know. When I've been in one of the Northern Brick virtual lug things, it's there in the background.
It sits there on top of the glass cabinet
with everything. Yeah. I just this one here, I've only seen the first few episodes of series 1. This is just a heads up.
Sorry for the spoiler. Me and Steve won.
Yeah, you've probably come into this at the wrong time, but I know there's some people I was talking about during the week who haven't been able to see it, or they're somewhere else. It's actually on demand in the UK on a channel called All4, so you can go through and you can stream it and watch it. So if you are outside the UK, have a look for that All4. And I don't know whether it's geo-blocked or anything like that, but
I think it is geo-blocked, sadly.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are ways around it.
Yeah, it's there. We'll let people figure out how to see it and watch it there. The next question, I think I might just hold off on a second there. Just had a nice trophy. Wow, so cool. I didn't think you'd actually get the thing there.
We did think when there was a Series 2 announced that we'd have to give the trophy back, but luckily we didn't have to.
I suppose by that stage, if you had the one by Bright Bricks anyhow, it's sort of like, not the end of the world. So
but you can have that one.
Yeah. That's cool that Bright Bricks did that.
It was really nice. It was a really nice gesture.
Yeah, definitely. And then just love the chat, Jen. It's great to hear from Nat, and thanks for hosting. Yep, no, thanks for being in. I appreciate everybody who's in here. And then there's just a general question here. I think it might be referring to. I'll just go back to the screen share just so I can just clarify that one. So you got that's Nate there, and then Steve was his partner there.
Yep, Steve Guinness.
That was Matthew.
Matthew Ashton, who was the judge, and then Melvin O'Doom, who it's his birthday today. I think he's 40 today. So happy birthday, Melvin, who was the host.
Yeah, happy birthday. And for those who don't know, do you want to just give the quick little thing on who Matthew Ashton is?
I better get this right. So Matthew Ashton is the Vice President of Portfolio and Design for the Lego Group. So basically, he's in charge of the majority of sets that make their way to our shelves in our homes. So all the designers work under him, basically.
Under him. So you might know a thing or two about designing Lego.
Yeah, just a bit.
I think there. Before we move on from Lego Masters, was there anything else you wanted to comment on? I know that's a pretty broad sort of.
Not that I can think of.
Okay, yep, no, that's fine. Because I think there was, and this was going to lead into something I wanted to sort of get onto now, talking about post Lego. What was the experience like immediately after the final episode aired?
It was a little bit weird. At work, I had to make a board of frequently asked questions for all my students because so many lessons were disrupted by, so are you going to quit teaching and do Lego full time? Did you win? What did you make? Like, just go and watch it on TV. It's fine. It's on demand. But just every single person who came in my classroom wanted to know everything about it. So yeah, the FAQ board helped. Going down the street, getting recognised quite a lot. More often than not, I know your face. Why do I know your face? Rather than, hey, you're the guy of Lego Masters. Unless you're at a Lego show or you're in the Lego store, then people are like, oh my God, it's you. I occasionally get that nowadays, but not so much because it's been 3 years. So long enough.
Yeah. And then
but yeah, so it was. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry. No. I was just going to go into the next sort of thing. So that was, the students reacting. And then I guess from your peers and colleagues as teachers and things, how did they sort of take it?
I think they were impressed, but at the same time a little bit upset because I basically spent 6 months lying to them, making excuses of why I'd been going places and not being able to do stuff. And it becomes quite difficult to lie to your colleagues when they've seen you in your classroom with a film crew filming stuff with you and Lego. And it sort of becomes a lot more difficult to lie about that.
Yeah, I suppose, it's sort of that whole sort of moral and ethical sort of aspect of it, and work environment. It's trust and everything else.
I got friends who had guessed it of what had happened, and I still couldn't tell them that they were right because I'd signed NDAs and everything. Like, it would be incredible if there was a Great British Bake Off that was Lego instead of cakes. Yeah, that'd be great if that existed.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
What a great idea. I'll write to Lego and tell them that. Yeah.
And how do you view the series that you did? Now you've got a bit of space from it. Do you think it was a trigger for Lego being more widely accepted, or has geek culture sort of moved mainstream, or given that you'd have the Lego movie and Lego Batman movie sort of coming out at the same time, that was already in motion, or where do you think?
I think it did do quite a lot for the AFOL community because even though we'd had the Lego movie, you were still a bit out there if you enjoyed that kids film, and sort of the President Business, Lord Business dad character wasn't a normal guy, was he? Let's face it. But I think Lego Masters sort of paved the way to say, oh, they're not just playing with a kid's toy, they're using it as a medium for art or creativity. I certainly got a lot more accepted by my peers, the non-AFOL ones anyway. And people start to understand that this is a genuine hobby. This is a genuine creative outlet. It's not just some middle-aged blokes playing with a kid's toy at home, if that makes sense. I think it did go a long way to make the AFOL community accepted quite a lot more, at least in the UK, and give us that level of understanding. Like, things snowballed after 2017, so we could look at it paving the way to the over 18s range of Lego, but I wouldn't like to say we did that. But who knows, it might be that series of Lego Masters started that ball rolling, and look where we are now 3 years later, of AFOL community, this much bigger thing and much more widely accepted, and Lego changing quite a lot of their stock to being aimed at adults now as well. Who knows?
Yeah, it's again, it was interesting having a chat with Kevin, because obviously when the UCS Millennium Falcon came out with a £650 price tag on it, it's like, wow, this is no longer a kid's toy. This is actually really, and even
no one is buying that for a 10-year-old.
Yeah, it's sort of like his version of it, because he was with them at the time when they did the original one. It's sort of like, we're going to put it out there. This is really risky because it's such a high price, and if it doesn't work, we're going to immediately pull it off the shelf. And then we're on flavor.
Well.
Yeah. So in terms of pushing that boundaries on prices and really targeting into the adult community there. Just want to make sure, we got that there. I guess this is a question I just sort of noticed here. If they did bring back the TV show, or for some of the other ones, I know it's a slightly different flavor. Do you have any tips for people who might be thinking about it or applying, or that sort of thing? Or
my main tip would be, go with someone you actually know. Go with someone you've actually built with. I saw a lot of people online, sort of on Facebook groups for Lego, etc., before the first series auditions happened and before the second series auditions happened, going like, hi, I'm going to, and even for the American one, hi, I'm thinking of applying for Lego Masters. Anybody wants to sign up with me? I don't think that works. You need to have some form of chemistry with your partner. You need to be able to have worked with them in the past. You need to have built with them in the past. So get someone that you actually know, rather than just going, oh, well, I'm quite a good Lego builder. Let's find another really good Lego builder. Me and Steve, admittedly, were both, I would like to say, really good Lego builders. But our skills are different, and we worked really well because we knew that our skill set was different. As I've said before, Steve is a planner, and I'm more of sort of off-the-cuff guy, and that worked really well in our favour. But we knew that was how we worked, so we could make it work together.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it sounds like, particularly after you talk about the rigors of a filming schedule and shoot and everything like that, if you're with somebody that you don't know and you're walking on eggshells around them.
Well, this is it. And also, in the nicest possible way, you're going to end up sharing a hotel room with them for quite a while as well. So you've got to get on with them.
Yeah. That's and now, how do you, as a teacher, do you really try to incorporate the Lego into your lessons? Or I think you've got a Lego club or something. How
yes, I've got a Lego club at the school. I run a Lego show at the school once a year, and also, as much as possible, I try and get Lego into my lessons as well. So, for example, when I'm teaching the limiting factors of photosynthesis, which, as you can imagine, is not that exciting a subject, I get the class to build minifigures, and we take data from building the minifigures and put it into a graph, and they can understand exactly how that graph was made, why it's the shape it is, because they made it from data that they got from making minifigures. And then suddenly you bring up the graphs for the limiting factors of photosynthesis, and they're the exact same shape, and they can really relate to it because they actually got to do that. Whereas they're not plants, they can't see what affects their rate of photosynthesis. They can see what affects the rate of how many minifigures you can make in a minute. So it's getting it on that level. And let's face it, anybody can build a minifigure, even if you've never done it before. As soon as you've built one, you know how to build a minifigure.
Yeah.
So it works really well for them.
Yeah, even if you don't have the instructions as such, by the time you got the head, the
legs go on the bottom, the body goes in the middle, get a head and get a hat, you're fine.
You've got that aspect of it sorted.
Yeah.
And did you, obviously you had that immediate aftermath where you had the the more widely recognizability and everything like that. Now that we've gotten a few years on, did your life really change that much, or is it what's the impact on?
Not massively. I now have a Lego room instead of being up in the loft at the old house. We've got a new house. What is nice is that occasionally I get to work for Lego or with Lego on some projects. So last year I made a MOC that got used for some of the promotion of Hidden Side. I made, and as well as Steve, some YouTube videos for Lego. So they basically made, for part of Rebuild the World, they gave us some sets and said, like, we want some builds making out these sets that only use pieces from this set or this set or this set. And we went down to London and filmed just our hands making these sets so that we could show that you can't just build the thing that's on the box. You build whatever you want out of these sets. Lego did a series of YouTube videos about STEM and science with Maddie Moat and Greg. Can't remember his surname, but they're both science presenters, and they needed some builds making for that. So me and Steve made those and sent them down to London, and they got used in those videos, which is a really cool opportunity, but also it's even nicer because you get paid as well.
Yeah.
I worked on a book for DK and Lego last year. I'm working on a couple more this year, but can't say what they're on this year. Last year's was Lego Epic History. Check it out. It's in all good bookstores now, I guess.
That Lego Epic History?
Lego, in fact, it's on a shelf over there. I'll just go grab it.
Yeah, no, by all means. Grab that there. It's always good to...
I don't get paid anything for selling the book, let's face it, but it's quite a nice book with quite a few builds made by myself inside. So DK and Lego put it together, so it was quite nice.
Yeah. Is there any specific page in there or something where you sort of point to and go, that's mostly me? Or?
I just opened it on one there. Sorry, I'll just find some. Yeah, so early North America, all the builds are mine on there.
Oh, cool.
And then let's look for ancient Egypt as well. I think they're all mine. Yeah.
That's all there. Yeah. Brilliant.
And there's quite a few more bits, but I think more of them are sort of split between me and two other builders rather than being full pages of myself. Just a quick check. Yeah, I think it's mostly shared from that point on, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So anybody out there, Lego Epic History, you can see some of Nate's post Lego Masters work. And I guess the other thing which came out of that, and I know this is probably more on Steve's side of things, I just thought we might as well just grab a few comments, is obviously the typewriter, which you can sort of see down here.
You can just see the man working out there, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what's obviously that was Steve's baby and things like that. How have you sort of seen post the show, you know, the evolution and progression of that from this into, hey, this is going to be a set?
It's been brilliant to watch it. Like, Steve has got so much passion for Lego and loves it. He gave up his full-time teaching job to do Lego full-time as well, and it's just brilliant to see that he's now come full circle, and probably next year he's going to have a Lego set on the shelf that he inspired, that he built, and it's just so brilliant. I'm so proud of him and so pleased for him, because he's done what, let's face it, every AFOL would love to see: a set of their own on shelves in Lego stores and in toy shops across the country. In fact, across the world. Yeah,
it's going to be, they'll be everywhere. And there's so many, you know, depending on the final way they come out, like, you know, printed pieces of it, you know, the alphabet on it, and there's so many other things
which would be very useful.
Yeah, and I guess now too that we've seen the piano which has come out, which, you know, that's, I think, you know, that came out today, and it's 320 pounds. Like,
and also the fact that you can actually play it by using an app on your phone as well. There's a motor in it. That, like, does that perhaps mean that the typewriter is going to be a usable keyboard that you can link to your iPad or your laptop? Like, who knows? Like, the possibilities are getting more and more endless, aren't they? If we've got this amazing playable piano now, what could be done with sets in the future?
Yeah, and what they can sort of do with it, because there's certainly I've seen some of Steve's stuff, and he's done a lot of iterations on it. It's not so much he's just gone, oh right, we did this on the show. Yushka into Lego ideas. Oh, it got
He's
through.
done so much. He's done stuff with Lego robotics as well. He's coded it to make it have sound and make it move automatically. He's done a multicolored version as well. He did a version that was based on I think Ole Kurt Christiansen's original typewriter as well. He went into sort of typewriter forums and typewriter Facebook groups to find out what the typewriter was, to get photos of it, etc. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes on this.
Yeah, no, it's and that's the thing. I briefly talked to him about that, and even just going through the process of Lego ideas and getting that 10,000. That's not just
that's not a walk in the park at all. That took him a lot of work to do that, and let's face it, so many people get the 10,000 votes and then don't make it through review anyway.
Yeah,
which must be absolutely heartbreaking.
And was Steve's one? Was that the one that they had like 26?
There was a lot, but I think 3 made it through. It was Steve's typewriter, Seinfeld, and the Home Alone house.
Home Alone house, yeah, those ones. So it's
there's
like,
no hard and fast rule of how many will make it through review. We've had reviews where no one's made it through, and then I think this is the one that had the most with 3.
3. Well, I'm sure Lego's there. They're going to look at it and go, "Do we think this has got a good chance to make a lot of money?" So yeah, it's good then that they've gone right out of those 26. Here's 3, and this is one of them. So no,
which is brilliant.
It's going to be brilliant to see that they're finally on the shelf and things like that. Okay then, and I guess just following on from that a little bit, I'll stop sharing that screen there. So from here, where would you like to see yourself sort of with 5 years down the line, in terms of Lego, or is there any sort of aspirations or things you're working on or where you'd like to get to?
It's going to sound pretty boring, but I don't think there is. Like, I know might sound a bit odd, but I've sort of done it now. I've won Lego Masters. I'm the chair of a lug, so I suppose that now my aspirations are more for the lug that I'm a chair of. I'd like to see them become even better than what they are. We've got a really close-knit groups of friends in there, and I want to get more opportunities for them. I've had opportunities for myself. I run a Lego show. I now run a lug. I've won Lego Masters, so I think all my focuses at the moment are towards them.
Yeah, the community aspect of it.
Well, this is it. I've had my opportunities. I've done that bit. So let's open doors for other people.
Yeah, help other people and get through it and do it that way. So just before we get on to, I guess, the general rounds of questions, for you, why do you think Lego is so appealing, and what sort of keeps you coming back?
It's the fact that it's so simple in its essence, but can be so creative. Like, anybody can build with Lego. You get 2 bricks and pop them together, and anyone can do that. And it doesn't matter how into it you are. If you enjoy Lego, you are an AFOL, as long as you're over 18. And I don't know, you can be as creative as you like. You can be as into it or not into it as you like. I mean, me and Steve have made 2 full-size humans in a week. Or it might be that you just make a set sat at home while watching the TV. It's accessible to everyone. Admittedly, it can be quite expensive, but you can be an AFOL with 1 set. You can be an AFOL with a whole house filled with Lego in every room. It's open to everyone, and if you can imagine it, you can probably have a good go at building it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess moving on from that, we've sort of touched on it. As we go more and more down the line, as the years go past, there's more and more pieces and elements and things. Do you think there's a danger of, because the pieces become so specialized, that for the general entry point for kids, you make something and it's a car, and this piece is specifically this and this piece is specifically that? Where I think back to when I was a wee little grasshopper, you had pretty generic pieces, which then you could do anything with. Like it wasn't as specialized as
Well,
that.
I think that Lego are clever because those generic pieces still exist, and if you want them, you can buy the classic boxes. But a lot of them exist in our sets as well. And apart from sort of the junior sets, there are, well, apart from junior sets and apart from sort of licensed pieces as well, Lego are clever with the pieces they make. And even if it seems really specialized at first, you'll probably find other uses for it. So there's been curved slopes that have got an edge off it that probably came out first as a bit of a mud guard for a car, and people would have thought there's absolutely no other use for that. But we've seen it used in the brick heads to create hair, and we've seen it used in other pieces as well. And if anything, I think you've been more creative with it because people are out there thinking, well, how on earth can I use that piece differently to how it's been used in a set? So I don't think there's a danger of it stifling creativity. I think it just gives us more options in what to do. And if it makes it more accessible for people, fantastic.
Yeah.
Like as you say, when you first started, the only snot brick out there was the headlight brick, the Erling brick. But now people had to make these models using that as their only snot piece. But nowadays we've got so many more, which some people might think, oh, it takes away the challenge. But it means that we're seeing even more incredible builds because it's easier to do the snot now.
It's easier to do that, and as opposed to just being pure brick figures or brick whatever, you can put more of the detail and the roundness and get away with more organic type shapes.
And I must say, it annoys me when people say, oh, when I was a kid, it was only 2x4 bricks and nothing else, because firstly, that's a lie. And also they're saying, oh, well, you can only make these nice things because there's so many bricks available. I don't think it got mentioned in the TV show, but when we made our final piece, the human who was there, we only used brick, plate, and slopes in him. There were no specialized pieces apart from 2 snot bricks to make his pupils through his eyes. Everything else was basic brick, basic plate. In fact, I've got his head here. Like, there's nothing there that you couldn't get however many years ago when people were saying, oh, Lego's not what it used to be. Like, it was a conscious choice that we made. We wanted him to be slightly blocky. We want him to be made out of pieces that people could have got 20 years ago or could have got today. As I say, apart from his pupils, that's the only place where we used a little bit of snot just so he could actually have some pupils on his eyes.
That goes in there. Yeah. I went through recently made, there was a 2002 a Darth Maul bust with the head and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was really, it was nice to actually just be building that sort of thing where they're having to be really clever with what they're doing. So just in terms of the eyes, it was basically like an antennae through a dish stuck into, I can't even remember. It was just such a basic brick sort of thing to get that effect. So, and I think that plays out well too. And then your final build for the show in terms of having the adult and the inner child and everything like that. So okay, brilliant. All right then. I think we just had the last little lot of questions, which are going to be more sort of generic's not the right word, but personal interest ones, I guess, more than anything else. So, what has been, or what's your favorite set?
Oh, tough question, but I'm going to say Medieval Market Village, which I think is 10193-1.
Quickly pull that up.
It's a really cool set because it was in a time where Castle hadn't been great, but suddenly we got this huge set with 2 beautiful medieval buildings in it that also were cleverly designed because you could they were hinged in the middle, so they opened up, so it looked like you got 4 medieval buildings. I think there was like 10 minifigures in it, and out of that, only 2 of them were soldiers. You got 8 peasants, all of which were different. So you've got a whole community of minifigures in this one set, which was just, for the time, incredible. You've got a bit of humor because you've got the stables and the blacksmiths, which there were 2 of the carrot pieces, but in brown to represent horse muck. Like, the tree in the middle was the biggest Lego tree we'd seen for years. It was just a beautiful set. And yeah, I thought at the time it's just incredible. It was the forerunner to the Mill Village raid, but this for me was the better one of the two.
Yeah. This is the right one which I got on the
That is the
screen.
right one.
Okay, yeah, just want to make sure there was. Yeah, and I think that it still holds up pretty well today, even though it was that's a few
Sadly,
years back.
I think over the last week, Brickset have been doing like a World Cup of sets, and although it made it into the final 10, it didn't do very well, sadly. But it's still my favourite.
Yeah.
I think it was head to head against Parisian Restaurant and missed out thanks to Parisian Restaurant.
Yeah, which I think that one's because also too it's a bit more recent and goes within the modular line, and it's not going to be something
more people own it, so they've had the experience of building it as well.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite theme?
My favorite theme is Forest Men, so late 80s, early 90s, and that's because it's close to home. Robin Hood is what I know. It's where I live, and they're just really nice little sets as well.
Let's see if I can find. Just quickly pull one up. Yeah, it's the sort of thing with the Dark Age going on for a little while. Some of these sets even is that them, or is that something completely different? Again?
That's them.
Okay, so we're in the ballpark of it. All right, yeah. Oh, brilliant. And has there ever been a theme that you don't like or never understood, or glad that it was discontinued?
I think you already know the answer to that, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but Star Wars. I know that it helped save Lego as a company, but there's only so many films and there's only so many spaceships. And how many times can Lego make the same thing over and over again? How many X-Wing fighters have we seen? How many TIE fighters have we seen? Millennium Falcons, Death Stars. And they're just quite boring in both their shape and their color palette. Like, let's face it, the Death Star is a big gray sphere. The Millennium Falcon is the end of a spanner, all in gray again. Like, it's very monotone and it's very repetitive as a theme. I know that Disney are now bringing out lots more films, but some of the sets that have come with them, which I know it's extracted from the source material, but they're just quite boring. Like, one of the sets a couple of years ago just seemed to be, for want of a better word, a helipad with some minifigures on it. And the helipad happened to be grey, which is the favourite colour of Star Wars Lego.
Your absolute favourite colour too.
Yeah, it's just get a better colour. I know they're working for the source material, but it's I get that they're good films, but I don't get how obsessed people can get with them, and how many versions of the same thing do you need?
That can come down the line. Yeah, so now would be the usual time, which would be a good time to go. Yeah, if you're liking this, give us a thumbs up. And Star Wars people, I would imagine that's going to be a thumbs down. Or I've just seen Solo Brick Builder, who's come in, and I know he likes his Star Wars. And straight away, right, I am out of here. It's like,
sorry, I know it's going to upset a lot of people, but yeah, it's grey and repetitive.
Yeah, it's it's everyone can have their favorites and their non-favorites. So
of course they are.
Yeah, I just anyhow, we'll move along. Do you like Technic or not?
I used to own a few Technic sets when I sort of stopped buying Lego System. I got a few Technic sets, but I don't use it very often because it's a different skill set, it's a different level, and I am not of that level yet. I work quite well with System. I know the geometry of System, and it works well for me. Technic, as I say, it's a whole new level, and no, I can't grasp that yet.
Yeah, I find it's one of those Marmite things. People either love it or hate it. No, there's usually not a middle ground in between. So
I don't hate it by any means. I just don't. I can't understand it. I can't use it very well. So I'll stick to what I know, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's It's yeah, as you say, clicking two bricks together is usually
Yeah,
much easier than finding some pins and lift arms, and yeah,
trying to
it's a
work
different.
out gear configurations, etc.
Yeah, yeah. This is a question I ask, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to know the answer. Any mock that you've done that you're really proud of?
The final build from Lego Masters.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it would be something like that. And then, how big a space do you have? Is it a Lego room, Lego table, Lego house?
So I have a Lego room that I'm currently set in, and also store some Lego up in the loft as well and under the spare bed.
It starts breeding and multiplying everywhere. Yeah, yeah. And just an estimate of the number of Lego pieces you have?
Got to be in the hundreds of thousands, I think,
Hundreds of
at
thousands.
least.
Yeah. Okay. And a theme you wish they would bring back or would do?
Bring back Forest Men. Easy.
Forest.
It's been 30 years. Like, can we have some more, please?
Yeah, give us some more. Did you like the Lego Ideas Treehouse, or is that it? It's still not the same.
It's not the same, I'm afraid. And also, it was a lot of money, like £180 for something that is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's so big when it's made, I wouldn't have anywhere to display it. Like, if it doesn't fit on a bookshelf, I can't display it.
Yeah, it's got to be within a certain size configuration.
This is it. So I don't own that one. As beautiful as it is, like, it is stunning. It's got some beautiful techniques in it, but yeah, it's not for me, I'm afraid.
It's not for you.
It's just too big.
Yeah. Is there a favorite Lego build or set of the last year that you've really enjoyed?
I've got one actually. So last year, bit of a story. I have a colleague at work whose son has a condition that is not nice. I won't go into the details of it, but it's life debilitating. And he got an opportunity to meet Tom Holland to go and watch a private screening of Spider-Man Far From Home with Tom Holland, which is really cool. And so his mum, who I work with, asked me if I could build anything to mark the occasion. So I said, of course I can. And it's free if you can get one signed for me as well. And so I just put together a little Spider-Man, but it's special to me because it is signed by Tom Holland, or wherever it is. There we go.
That's awesome.
So that one I hold quite dear, and I've never put that on any social media or taken it to a show yet, so you've got an exclusive of that one.
Ooh. Gee, I wonder what's going to be the thumbnail. No, I'm going to get out of it. And do you have a favorite Lego resource, website, book, podcast, other?
Well, Bricklink is probably it. While I'm trying to design things, I do a lot of designing on Studio. So usually I'll find if I use a piece and it's quite expensive, I'll then go searching on Bricklink as to why it's expensive. So it's only been used in one set, or it's not been used for the last 5 years, etc. So yeah, Bricklink is probably the resource I use the most, not just for buying the bricks, but for researching it as well.
Yeah, yeah. I did something similar one time and just went through and broke down some of the colors. Because usually it comes down to colors. It's like, okay, yeah, that's in one set or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, I'll just shift the color palette slightly one direction or the other. And
the pyramid that I built for this book ended up having to be yellow because the top bricks, up until the Mario sets released today, to get that in normal tan color, it was only given in one model, which was a promotional giveaway at Legoland, California. So that little 1x2 slope was £10.75 each, and there was 0 in the UK at the time. Whereas now it's available in a £3.50 poly bag from Mario. So yeah, the pyramids had to be made in yellow because they have to be accessible for kids to try and make. And it was just quite alarming to me that such a simple generic piece isn't available in that colour unless you pay nearly 11 quid for one of them. I'm not going to spend £22 just for the top 2 bricks on a pyramid.
That's the top 2, yeah. it's moving the colour the whole way. Because I found the same sort of things. It's sort of like you can get a 1x2 brick pretty cheap, 1x4 brick, pretty cheap. 1x3, astronomical. You can
Yeah.
barely get any of them. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'll break the model up and start using those pieces, or 3 plates.
Yeah, 3. Like, if you can get 3 plates cheaper than the brick, is it? Like, we're gonna go for plates.
Yeah, it's going to go that way. Okay, and a set you wish you bought but you never did.
Probably going to be Cafe Corner. As I say, it came out while I was still at university, so even though it was only 80 quid, which nowadays seems ridiculously cheap for a modular when we're looking at now 150 quid, it was buy that or eat for a month. Yeah. So surviving won over that one.
It did go down. And then we can expand upon this one. Any AFOL groups that you're part of?
I am a member of, let's go through. So I'm a member of Eurobricks Forum. I'm a member of Brickshire. I'm a member of Northern Brickworks. I guess I'm kind of a member of Fairy Bricks because I do quite a bit of fundraising for them. But my sort of major one is Northern Brickworks. As I've mentioned before, I'm chair currently of Northern Brickworks. They're my favourite lug. They're the friendliest lug I've ever been in. That's why I've sort of put more passion and time and effort into that one. And I recommend them because they are free to join currently, which I don't think any other lug is free in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that, but that's certainly one way in which I got into it because it popped up in our London AFOLs. We said, hey guys, look, the guys up north have got this one here and it's free to join if you want. So yeah, why not?
My sort of mindset of going free is that the vast majority of member benefits of being in any lug are free. So friendship and camaraderie are free. Going on a Facebook group or a meetup online is free. The event support Lego that you get, which is now just lug support Lego you get, comes from Lego for free. The other bits that we can't mention to non-members come from Lego for free. So if you start charging people for stuff that we get for free, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So we looked at the numbers and we found a way to make it work. So we're just trialing it for a year to see if we can exist as a lug for free, which this year was not a great year to choose because of the pandemic and everything else that's on. We've had hardly any shows to do any fundraising at. But we're giving it a go anyway, seeing how it goes.
Okay, there. And if people give it a plug, if people want to reach out and join Northern Brickworks,
let's get go to nblug.org.uk/join-us.
Yep, and I definitely, for anybody out there, recommend doing that. And at the moment, because you're doing, is it every second Monday a virtual lug meet?
Every second Monday we're doing a virtual lug meet on either Zoom or Google Meet. So we set a challenge, you bring your build along with you. While we're there, we'll do an activity during it, and just it's nice to have a catch up and put the world to rights, or at least the Lego world to rights anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've popped into one or two of those, and they've been great. So for anybody who's in one of these areas where you don't have lug or there's nothing next to you, or it's something you've always wanted to do, definitely recommend doing that. And I guess the spin-off from that, you mentioned it too, was the fairy bricks.
We've just come to the end of that one. So for the last month, the month of July, I've been designing a different mini land figure every day for a whole month. Some of which have been nominated by members of the general public or the AFOL community, which I've said is a £5 donation to Fairy Bricks, and I'll make the model, or at least design the model that you suggested. And I set out with the target of £100, and I've made for Fairy Bricks just under £300. So I think that went all right. Almost £10 a day.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Because certainly there's so many of the pop culture ones that you've done in here, and this is your Instagram page. So if you want to just give a quick plug for where people can join on that.
So my Instagram is Lego_Nate_88. I think that's my Instagram anyway.
Yep, and I'll bring it up to here. Afterwards, I'll put the links into, I think it's already in the description. So for your
brilliant, thank you.
Page, I love the rock one that you did. That's
Thank you.
it is brilliant. I always love that one. And if people wanted to make a donation to this or to Fairy Bricks, is there any easy way to do that? Or
So there is a link on my Instagram page and my Facebook page and my Twitter page for a GoFundMe, so you can click on there and it'll take you to my GoFundMe page for Fairy Bricks. So all the money goes directly to Fairy Bricks, or you can check out Fairy Bricks' website. They've got a PayPal link on there and a GoFundMe link on there as well.
yeah, because I think in general these guys. I think about a month ago they had somebody. They've got a warehouse and they got
broken into, so their van got taken, and something ridiculous like £500,000 worth of Lego got taken that is to be used to donate to children in hospital, which is a fantastic cause. But when people steal that, that's just horrible. So it gave me, well, it was part way into the month that happened, but made it even more, well, I don't know, more poignant, I think.
Yeah.
To keep going on with it.
It's the sort of thing. I know there's a lot of us YouTube streamers who did streams for this and other GoFundMe pages and things like that. But you're stealing from 6 kids in hospital. It's pretty. Anyway, it wasn't the best with that sort of stuff. No. So, and I think we've spoken about the AFOLs groups, Northern Brickworks, which is great. And is there anybody out there that you'd like to connect to that can help you with something you're working on?
Connect with probably just any Lego Masters contestants from around the globe. It'd be really nice to share the experience of what it was like working on their series compared with our series. I think it'd be quite nice to see if they've got similar experiences or if it's completely different.
Different now, yeah. I suppose there'd be a very select few that have been in that sort of position. Yeah. No, that's great. And I mean, we can just run over again. If people want to reach out and get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Either through Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. So Instagram is Lego_Nate_88. Twitter is Lego_teacher. And I think Facebook is facebook.com/LegoNate. I think that could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll after this, if it's not already there, we'll grab some links off you and put it in the description below, or
thank you,
around the video. And then I think one of the getting down near the end. Is there anything I should have asked you which I haven't yet?
Nothing that I can think of. I think you've covered most things. You've been very thorough.
Covered a lot of ground. So yeah, this might be your modern FAQ that you had for your students. So like, just go here first, and then we can chat from there. So no, look, I really appreciate you coming on and giving up your time for this, because this has gone for what's this, coming up to 2.5 hours now? But it's so fascinating to sort of see people within the community who do these amazing builds, and sort of, okay, you see that snapshot of it there, but what's the before part? Like, how does it get there? Because you certainly, some people, the amount of time that they've put into it, or the understanding, and it's that usual thing, an overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Well, this is it. Like, it was really nice work. I worked, as I mentioned before, with Lego last year, making a MOC that got used for some of the promotional material for Hidden Side. And the guy I was working with, we were trying to come up with a price, basically. But I was like, well, it'll probably only take me one afternoon to make it. And it's like, I'll stop you there. It's not about the one afternoon that it takes to make that. It's about the 10 years that you've been honing the skills to be able to do that. Like, that's a very good point. And that's what we don't see when we see these beautiful Instagram posts of, you don't just do that overnight. It does take years of trying it. It starts with just building sets, following the instructions, and from that you learn these techniques. You learn how the bricks go together, or the different ways that they can go together. And yeah, anyone can do it. It just takes practice. Practice makes progress.
Yeah, exactly. There's no shortcuts to a lot of this stuff, and you see. I've been quite fortunate in interviewing people such as yourself, being able to sort of see that backstory and see a lot of the work and the other things which go into it. So like, okay, yes, you're doing that really well, but you sit there and you are fully across this theme and that technique, and you do this and you play with that, and you're like, yeah. So it all comes together. Because certainly some of the kids in that sometimes it's like, oh, well, if they do bring back the Lego Masters, you should go on it. So like, yeah, I know some of the people out there with what they're doing. It's like,
yeah. Well, this is it. As I say, me and Steve, we're not the best Lego builders in the UK, but we won a competition which gave us quite a nice accolade.
Yeah, because it was at that, as we sort of said before, in that context, at that point in time, in that.
Exactly. That very specific thing we won.
Yeah. Alrighty then. If there's nothing else, I think we might just sort of wrap it up there. Again, thanks very much. Thanks very much to everyone who's been in the chat there and asking us the questions which come through. Appreciated that. Obviously, you can catch us on the replay here on YouTube and also Twitch. And next week, I think for the slot, I'll be back to my normal You Say I Draw. So come along, give me topics to draw, and we just do it and have some fun from there. So is there? I think we've covered most things. You still not having you're not up to a YouTube channel or anything else there?
No YouTube channel yet. I can't think of anything to put onto YouTube, if I'm honest, that hasn't already been done and better than I could do it.
So yeah, I think that's everything here. If you want to get in touch, obviously got my details around this here. So thanks very much for coming on. And again, Nate, thank you very much. Really enjoyed this. Love having a chat with people within the community.
Thanks for having me.
That's great. And so for everybody else out there, see you later. Until next time when we talk about all things Lego and lifestyle. See you later.